Okay, we are live now. Infinite Plane Saturnday, 6/29, 2024. Just left a conversation in Discord talking about mysticism, magic, and media. And I'm a staunch objectivist, and we are the only objectivists on Earth, if you didn't know that. The objectivists became subjectivists when the entire philosophy was put through the MSM filter, which is a reality wood chipper. The IPR, Infinite Plane Radio, is a fake news wood chipper. And that's kind of what we're engaged in here. We are clear cutting forests of fakery all day long on all sides because both sides of this boxed reality are rigged. It's a paradigm, it's a box, the world stage. And we're cutting edge here because we've stepped outside of the box. And if you haven't, you can't claim objectivity. Okay, let's get into that stuff later. It's Infinite Plane Saturday, which means open phones, any subject, AMA. Now, if you do call with extraordinary claims, like if you're convinced that there are just flocks of unicorns flying across the stratosphere and marking their territory and poisoning us, uh, if you don't have pictures, then I don't think I should maintain the phone call very long. If you're going to say that you saw the space station, if you don't have a video, I'm going to, really find the call of limited use. So we want people to bring evidence to support their extraordinary claims. If you believe in ocean levels rising and you're concerned about that, provide some evidence. We have a lot of people running around with factless, baseless claims, and they're like essentially self-terrorized. They terrorize themselves with their own memes that they find. More things to be afraid of. And the position of the skeptic is really fearless. Like, I'm not afraid of nukes. And if you are, like, if you're willing to go into a bunker and duck and cover, then you're um, scared. And it's fine to admit that. But my position here is that we don't have any evidence to substantiate any of the major weapons of mass destruction. We really don't have a lot to go off of when it comes to trusting them on beliefs that we can't reality test. I'm not worried about planet killers, whether aliens or asteroids. I'm not worried about demonic aliens or aliens at all, actually. Let's see. Portal Complex says manifestation. David Hazel says man infestation. The Incompletist says he is disappointing woo woo. Who are you referring to? And I am disappointed in woo. I am disappointed in the lack of evidence that support extraordinary claims, and I'm interested in investigating these claims. So, like when I'm talking about media and magic intersecting, I'm talking about how media has become a religion, and all religions have an esoteric side. There's the surface level for the masses, and then there's the initiated side, the initiated interpretation, the real secrets, the tricks of the trade. And I would say that the mainstream media is essentially functioning in many ways like any religion would. You have its pundits, its priests, who only know the literal interpretation of the news, and then you have the news benders behind the scenes who know that it's all fake. All right, we are joined here by the HBIC, Michael Cervantes, Cubstar, Side Girl says, just started streaming. Yes, we are live. Clump says, manifest something. And if someone does, look, I'm not opposed to this, but I'm interested in all explanations. But I'm not going to give bad explanations equal airtime, is what I'm saying. I'm very interested in, for example, reverse engineering misconceptions. And there are many of those. And we have been really cutting fringe at this. A lot of people don't want to go against the grain. A lot of people are afraid to go against the chemtrail mob or the Mandela mob or the synchromistic explanation, which is just comforting and seemingly complete and satisfying. But no, no, if you're really investigating, if you're really seeking, there are no satisfying explanations, just more question marks. This is a multi-million piece puzzle, and none of us have the full picture. But the difference is, we haven't subscribed to an artificial perimeter and boundary that says this is all there is. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it like a puzzle, like a literal puzzle, the worldview we have is a complete puzzle. But if you get close to it, you see that there are cracks, there are little gaps because they force the pieces in. And the truthers are the ones who are looking in between the gaps for more explanations. And that is a trick. It's a trap, in fact, because now you've accepted the basic thing that the boundaries do define it, but now they forced it into place. And what we're doing here is we're looking, well, what pieces have not even been included in this big picture? It's an open system from our perspective, not a closed system. That's what I mean when I say the box. The boxed paradigm, the worldview that we all tacitly agreed to when we were dragged into this alternate reality game of a media infused reality, a mass agreed upon collective delusion. Cygirl says, a mass satanic ritual taking place in Dublin this weekend with the Taylor Swift concert. Taylor Swift does look like the satanic high priest's daughter. That's unmistakable. The timelines are off. It couldn't be her, but stylistically, it could be a direct reference. And it wouldn't shock me if you really think about it. Zena LeVay, who was baptized publicly and was given a pink Baphomet. And pink has a very significant role in Satanism. That's why the high priestess Jane Mansfield was always in pink, and she had her pink palace. She was like a living Barbie doll. Because the Barbie is an idol representing the satanic goddess, which they call Babylon. And that's what the pink represents. And Taylor Swift does fit the same archetype as any of these other idols they put out there. I haven't looked too deep, but it's undeniable that she's consistently associating herself with the number 13, which has all the significance, really, what 13 pertains to the goddess, the lunar cycle, the divine feminine, etc. And this would correlate with the Babylon slash beast recasting of Osiris and Isis. American Father says, first time listener, enjoyed your book, thanks for sharing. Which one? Did you read Auto Hoaxology 101? Or World Stage Deprogramming Guide? Or a different one? There's The Secret Religion of the Elite. The books on media deconstruction I completely keep separate from the esoteric meanderings, which is interesting in itself, the whole metascript concept. And I use the term metascript to separate what we're describing from those who suggest that it's being done through coincidence, through a higher power or a supercomputer. I say metascript to point out that there is a script that transcends all platforms, and it is essentially our pre-written history, which is being performed, acted out on the world stage. So yeah, Secret Religion of the Elite is really getting into the fundamentals behind it, how the media itself is really just the latest iteration of an archaic worldview. And the atheists and the adherents of the cult of scientism are actually religious fundamentalists. And the symbolism tells the story. And the whole book is about how, yeah, we have a modern flood myth, a neo-eschatology and climate change. Gaia is a god construct. Space is the new heaven. NASA is an Egyptian mystery school, and their rockets are just obelisks. That's all they are. Same thing goes for SpaceX, which is quite literally space sex, because at the core of their mystery Babylon religion, and it goes back to Jack Parsons, but you can also find parallels with the Russian rocket pioneers who are into theosophy and cosmism. It comes down to space is really just an allegory for states of higher consciousness, but it's been packaged in such a way that it's a heaven that all the different competing religions will believe in. And now mankind's future destiny isn't going to be in the Christian heaven or the Muslim heaven, but no, it's going to be in space, which is the heaven as described by science. And the Russian rocket pioneers I'd referenced, a couple of them made these statements which had to do with reinterpreting spiritual concepts through the lens of science. And this is where I think the idea of aliens really comes from. And aliens, of course, are angels that the atheists will believe in. That's why the Christian right thinks that aliens are demons. Whereas the left worships the aliens as future versions of us. But yeah, Secret Religion of the Elite is just showing how the old world order is still in control. Nothing's falling apart. Nobody's losing any power. In fact, we're slipping deeper into this matrix, deeper into Plato's cave. And this new iteration, this quote, new world order, is just the old one, but dressed up as science, a new priesthood. And since I put that book out, a lot has advanced, and I'm going to have to put out I put out a second edition, but there's going to have to be a third because in 2020 we saw a replacement for the archaic concept of sin and the idea of salvation from sin and the Eucharist. All this stuff has been updated with the advent of the virus, the injectable Eucharist, and how saved and unsaved is really just a political designation, depending on whether or not you believe in the state church. And the state church today is the media. So those who are compliant with the state church take the injectable Eucharist, and they see those on the other side, the antis, as being unsaved. And they are, in a sense, because they're Protestants to the world stage church, to the mainstream media. But it doesn't mean that they're not mind controlled, because alt media is 100% part of the same universe. It's just basically a subset, but it's controlled opposition. Alt media never has gone far enough. I mean, Alex Jones is obviously a representative of this. They're allowed to go so far to get all the attention of those who are paying attention, who are looking for the truth, but then they stop short of it. And what they did is they focused the truther movement around 5 or 6 big trees in the forest of fakery. And they don't recognize that the entire forest is fake. So you have Jones and others running laps around certain big trees, like Sandy, getting sued for it. Big public spectacle. And for the last 10 years, it's distracted people from the fact that every single mass shooting since has been fake. And if you dispute that, tell me which one. Point it out to us, please. Because we're still waiting for the exception to the rule. And there are real shootings. There are real deaths. But try to investigate it. NPR did. The school shootings that weren't. They did a story where they investigated 235 mass shootings and found out that these statistics were lying. They were misrepresenting events at school as shootings. There weren't any shootings to speak of. And my point being, when it comes to really, I guess, it's really that bad when it comes down to it. Nobody's fact-checking these claims. That's how we live in these bubble realities. And my point, again, to the secret religion of the elite is that it seems to me that this is a new meta-religion. Through media and with the authority of science, they're actually seeking to replace all of the traditional ones. And it could be, too, that the American right is being set up as some kind of a scapegoat for all the ills of the world. And that is what they do. If you look at, who do they blame for even, climate change? Well, it's the American nationalists who believe in capitalism and pollution. They've really put a target on the West. They've made it into a collective scapegoat. And it seems like, just going by the meta-scripted tales they give us about the West burning, Westworld, Westeros, we're constantly seeing this theme. It could be something having to do with bringing down any last resistance to this new world order, which, again, is just the old world order, but they're trying to get rid of the old programming. They're updating us. This is a new iteration. It's like, get rid of your flip phones. Get the iPhone. You'll have bitter clingers who still want to hold on to their rotaries, but at some point, you're going to have to go with the collective. And I think we're all being pushed into this new version of reality. All right, let's see what we have here. Busy 56, Boys Episode 2 had a reference to the moon landing being faked. Now, there's a movie coming out with Scarlett Johansson called Fly Me to the Moon. They're preparing the public to be let in on the secret that the Americans faked the moon landing to trick the Russians. And you know how Americans take pride in the moon landing? How dare you say it's fake? We went to the moon. No, you didn't. You didn't even watch it on TV. You heard about it second, third, fourth hand. Nobody went to the moon. But they'll say that. We went to the moon, America. And it's the same thing as saying, we won the Super Bowl. Oh, I didn't know you played football. I thought you sat on the couch and watched people play football on TV. But you won the Super Bowl? It's vicarious identification. And they take pride in the moon landing. So when we say, hey, that's fake as hell, you're insulting America to them. It's like burning a flag for some people. They take it with, it's like pride, national pride. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to say, yeah, we faked the moon landing to trick the Russians, and people will take pride in that. They'll say, yeah, we had to do that. Mind war. You don't understand. This is 5D chess. They'll totally accept fake moon landing. And why? Because it's already been replaced. Alex Jones has even replaced it. He's like, yeah, they had to fake the moon landing because the film couldn't survive the Van Allen radiation belt. But they did go to the moon to put the laser reflectors up there, but they used different craft, super secret stuff that nobody's ever seen. So they have this way of preserving the myth of outer space. They preserve the big lie by sacrificing this little lie, plausibly. And this is where a lot of people are. And I find it really shocking, in fact, that James Fetzer, who seems one of the realest of all the truthers out there, I mean, he's not letting go of this Sandy Hook thing, but he put out a really great book called I Suppose We Didn't Go to the Moon Either. And in this book, he breaks down the hoax moon landing, frame by frame, just slays it. And I asked him, well, what do you think about the space station? He's like, yeah, I haven't looked into it. Like, wait, this is a house of cards. If they didn't land on the moon, they didn't do a space station. And they're not going to Mars. But somehow they're going to be able to get away with it. Oh, we just landed on Mars. We have a Mars base. Yeah, we faked the moon landing, but we had to trick the Russians. But here we are. We beat them to Mars. It's like that trick of car salesmen. They get you to talk about the color of the car. They assume the sale, and they get you talking as though you've already bought the car. And what they're doing with this, we faked the moon landing to trick the Russians to beat them to space, is they've sold us this jalopy. They've sold us this whole fake uh, science fiction vision. And yeah, of course, people are going to buy it. And Buzz Aldrin also said, by the way, Buzz Aldrin said that there's a monolith on Phobos, one of the moons of Mars. So that's true then, right? Because we can't doubt what an astronaut says. They said they went to the moon. They brought back petrified wood, moon rocks, depending on who you ask. And so therefore, their testimony is unimpeachable. They have seen the globe. They walked on the moon. They golfed on the moon. So when he says there's a monolith on the moon of Mars, it is therefore true. What would your basis be for saying it's not true? Like, who are you to say when Buzz Aldrin is telling the truth and when he's not? Did he stop telling the truth after 1969? So again, Buzz Aldrin said that there is a monolith on Mars. Here we go. This is on Wikipedia even. So those of you space cadets who believe in outer space and space travel, guess what you believe in? And don't say you don't. You believe in the monolith on Mars. Okay, and it's a real monolith, but they're saying it's just a boulder, a geological feature. But it also shows up in a 2012 science fiction novel. This is what I call fake fake, like pyramids on Mars. It's fake fake. You're accepting the premise of a physical planet as an object, and then you're debating on what's on it. But to my satisfaction, I have not come to the point where I can accept that Mars is a physical object, much less something where they have like rovers going around taking pictures. Those are all obviously done in Arizona, probably. By the way, phones are open, 563-999-3664. Occam's razor, what's more likely? Mars rovers are in Arizona, or Mars rovers are on Mars. Let's see how sharp your Occam's razors are. Because if anybody's saying, oh, of course they took these things millions of miles away, and they're out there just checking out the real estate, doing some recon. Like, if you really believe that, you live in a science fiction universe, and I'm not there. Nick Fingar says Devon Island. These days, it's probably all done in a movie studio with these 3D surrounding LED screens, which are fantastic and extremely realistic. It creates reflections appropriately. And I would think that's what they're doing it now. In fact, I recently saw a scale model of one of the Mars rovers here at the planetarium. And I go over to the planetarium and they have this ridiculous animatronic dinosaur. It's just like this big chapel of lies. But there is some useful information to be gleaned from it. Yeah, James Osman says astronauts to the moon, ha ha ha. Moonfall. The movie Moonfall is so ridiculous. But, this is something to bring up really quick here. Because now we're dealing with space junk, and I've been calling it out. Look, space junk is real ever since Moonfall. The piece of space junk that hit the home in Florida was dropped on 311, which has significance, and they're suing NASA for ADK. Space junk has been made real through movies like Moonfall that populate our imagination with stuff falling. So I'm looking at this bigger picture, and to me it's like that's got to be the next agenda. Space junk falling. NASA, SpaceX, and they need us to believe in the existence of space junk. So they give it to us in movies and they provide a few psyops. And then just the other day, I mentioned this earlier, an old Russian satellite burst into 100 pieces and they had to jump inside of the ISS. Like, this is obviously science fiction. They don't show us any video, we don't have any evidence. This is just a story. But this is the story. So a Russian satellite nearly takes out the ISS. Nick Fingar says it was your idea, but I think the idea for the space junk helmet. Yeah, I did come up with it independently, like helmet Karens. But when Skylab was falling, there were watch parties across Australia, and they were selling space junk helmets. It was like this national spectacle where they were waiting to see it fall. And now they're going to do that with Musk. So Musk is being paid £666.4 million to build a space tugboat that will drag the ISS down into the ocean. They're paying Elon Musk to destroy the ISS, which is kind of poetic, but it kind of takes the space war thing out of play. Like, are they going to shoot down the ISS to outrage everybody and destroy our international solidarity? Or are they just going to dunk it in the ocean and give us a light show? Ears Up says there are 7,300 space helmets being listed on eBay. If I was going to go into the space helmet business, I would probably create one that's comfortable to sleep in. There was that Canadian city councilwoman who was in bed and a piece of space, it wasn't junk, it was a space rock, but it hit the bed next to her head. It could have killed her. It was like 8 pounds. If she'd been on the other side of the bed, it would have craniumed her, brains all over the wall. A casualty. But no, she survived. And I thought it was weird that construction workers saw this fireball. People heard this boom. It blows a hole through her roof. And then it's right there on the pillow next to her, like the tooth fairy put it there. I'm like, I'm sorry. If it came down with all that force, like the gods threw it down and it's coming down, puncturing a hole through your roof, how is it not bouncing off your pillow? How is it not bouncing around the room at least once? No, it just landed on the pillow. But everybody believed it. Like, I'm pretty serious about finding some space junk. And if any of you want in on this, I'm just talking about finding some space junk and showing it to the news. Because I want to test their credulity. I want to see, do media operatives have the discernment to know if a piece of junk came from space or not? Like, what is their expertise? If their default position is it's real because I heard about it on TV, then they're going to believe it. And then there's going to be me holding a piece of space junk on TV. I'm like, yeah, I'll put this up on eBay. Why shouldn't I? Like, that's kind of what NASA does. That's their business, isn't it? Creating relics for their space religion, NASAtology relics. All right, it's a busy day. We have 100 messages in chat so far. Nick Fingar says, I live in Tampa, so does Witsit. I work at a bar restaurant that has a stage. If you make Tampa part of your book tour, I could set up a live debate. Okay, I will do that. I'll put that in my notes. Tampa. I've been putting a list of cities. So for those who are wondering what we're talking about here, is I have a stack of Auto Hoaxology 101. And what I'd like to do is arrange, not 100% formal, but debates with rules that we agree upon in advance, and we live stream them. But they have to be in public. I need people who are willing to publicly defend their views. And I think this will root out a lot of people who are anons, who are making extraordinary, crazy claims with no repercussions, no accountability. But I think that the whole point of it is that we'll be having these conversations in the context of media skepticism, of auto hoaxing the MSM itself. And every concept or every argument I make is going to be based on the framework within that book. But I have a few plans, places to go, and the idea is I just, just a one day stop, but we'll be inviting key experts depending on the topic. And I would like to get into a discussion with both a severely Mandela affected person, someone who has the Mandela effect syndrome, and someone from a police department who has experience in interrogation, who understands the effects of the interrogator on those being questioned and how they can interfere with memories and even lead to faulty testimony, faulty eyewitness testimony, and how that's actually a phenomenon that can be created, that false memories can be created. There's a process to it, and it's well understood by people who do interrogations, and it's not understood by the victims of it. And the Mandela affectees are, in fact, victims of faulty eyewitness, or rather, they're afflicted with a faulty eyewitness testimony that they give. But they have arrived at their conclusions because of a manipulation that has taken place. Ashy Dog says, going to start putting space junk on eBay. Yeah, exactly. Violet says, I will do it. Who's going to come? Do they even have to come look? Yeah, can you just email it to them? Like, I found this piece of space junk in my backyard, and it has a SpaceX logo on it. They might just run with it. I saw some guy found a meteor on a lake, and it looked like a charcoal brisket. I'm like, is this a joke? But I'm all for it. I mean, I had this idea before of let's just start our own space agency and just do it all in Photoshop. It's not like anybody would know the difference. It's that bad. It really is that bad. Like, you know how easy it is, how easy it would be to start a cult, like a religious cult, if you were like really into New Age and I mean, people worship JFK. We've seen this stuff. It's not even hypothetical. Symbia says Brian Stavey will probably come to the debate if you offer him a Big Mac meal. Oh yeah, I would like to have a debate with him, and I would have a few rules in advance. Like one of them, no ad hominem attacks, no name calling. I'm not the God blocker. I'm just someone who wants to get the best argument out of somebody they can make without relying upon manipulative language, sophistry. I have that problem with the chemdoozled. And the chemical, I'm sorry, the chemtrail crowd are just now full-blown skyphobics. They're scared of the sky. But it's a weird kind of, I don't know if it's hypocrisy, but it's paradoxical. I mean, what kind of person is afraid of something, but then they don't put on PPE for it? Like, I am so scared to breathe the outside air. Well, they don't wear a mask. Well, how scared are you? Aren't you worried about chemtrail lung? But I will debate chemtrail believers because the whole point of it is this. In the course of a half-hour conversation, we can eliminate every single bad faith argument, bad faith question, and logical fallacy. And then we're left with the facts. And that's where we need to be. And then that's our new starting point. So we have to, again, strip away the fog of Psywar and just focus on the essentials. And we may not be left with enough information to make any claims about weather manipulation from climate change or chemtrails. Maybe these are all baseless claims. Maybe it's some part of some neo-eschatology. Rocco Calzone says, large debate community on YouTube, modern day debates, the crucibles are just a couple I know offhand. Yeah, I'm actually reaching out to them. But I think we need to do this in person first. And we're doing it in person, and the debate is this, though, is that I'm debating as an auto hoaxer. I'm not a truther. I'm not an MSM believer. I'm operating within a very specific framework. And I will accept evidence, but I'm also going to demand that certain minimums are met. Like, you cannot come to me and say to my face, I believe that planes are spraying poisons on me, unless you have your own footage. You can't rely on secondhand propaganda. Busy56 says, did you know NASA said they, quote, didn't have time to build bathrooms for the Apollo missions? They apparently had to tape plastic bags to their backsides. Now, is that true or is that told for public consumption? Because they'll have these stories so the public finds it plausible. It's probably true because they're just a bunch of pervs and sickos over there behind the scenes. You'd have to be to participate. I mean, who knows what they're really like? We only see the exoteric, but if you know what the cult's really about. Okay, let's see. I would also point out too that the program director for the Apollo mission admitted that by the late 60s, the simulations were indistinguishable from real missions from the perspective of those in the control room. And the other day, the ISS did a simulation of astronauts in distress, and they, quote, mistakenly broadcast it. So a lot of people were listening to NASA as they accidentally broadcast simulation of an astronaut in distress 2 weeks ago. NASA accidentally aired a drill meant for training in which an astronaut was being treated for decompression sickness. Now, what's kind of interesting about this is the timing of it, because this is this mission that seems to almost correspond with the Titan submersible, which of course was imploded last solstice. But anyway, just pointing it out here that NASA accidentally broadcast a simulation. The thing is, they're always a simulation. They're just lying about it most of the time. So what they did there is they admitted, yeah, we're running simulations, but it's always been a simulation. Someone had asked me about space before, and they said, do you not believe these astronauts are in space? I'm like, well, no. Why would I? Honestly, why would I? Like, the Occam's razor, I think, is adequate here. No, it's a simulation. It's a fake miracle. It impresses the public. It maintains a paradigm in which all of the world, all of the various worldviews are compatible. And we all have the space as heaven as the ultimate ideal, and scientism as the dominant faith. But yeah, it's 100% a simulation. And how would you know otherwise? You're going to just trust them, and then you can trust them, but then you also have to deal with certain things. And I don't have to believe in green screen glitches as just being the result of microgravity. I don't have to accept bogus explanations for why their hair is hairsprayed stiff. I don't have to accept the light loss and light diffusion evident on spacewalks that would indicate these are being done underwater. I don't have to accept any of their bad special effects and believe it to be real. I don't have to pretend to be visually illiterate. I'm just rejecting it just based on that. Now, if it is real, provide me some better footage. Provide me something compelling. But I'm just not convinced. But I am suspending judgment. And if you're not suspending judgment, then you have admittedly placed a great deal of faith in NASA. And I understand that if you're someone that doesn't know news is fake, news is bent, news is completely manufactured within an echo chamber that ensures it all fits this bigger picture. It's so faked that if you're not aware of that, you can be forgiven for thinking space is real. But when you recognize that the stuff on the ground is fake, you have no excuse for trusting the same sources with stuff that is even further removed from your ability to fact test it, to reality test their claims. So no, space is fake AF. But when I say they, the media has every interest in creating for you a worldview with certain parameters, certain fears, certain built-in presuppositions, end times. End times are very common today. Scientism would tell you. The priests of scientism will tell you, if you believe the science, you know we are in the end times. Climate change will kill us in a few years. It's always the end times. You have various culty denominations that would maintain this. Then you have the truthers, which believe we're in the end times. Every other live stream from InfoWars is World War III started today. It's always end times. So what does that do? End times puts a constraint on your worldview. So now it's smaller. The future is really just more immediate and uncertain. I think it's all about constraining where your mind wanders. Okay, continuing though. These are all debatable points. So when we go, let's say we go to one of these events. Let's say go to Tampa or somewhere. Possibly, I have a few places on my list, but I would like to debate the existence of the space station with a believer. And one thing I know for certain is that nobody is going to be able to provide footage of the space station. It's just a bunch of liars that say they can. And this challenge needs to be raised. Too often, I hear people make this lazy excuse, well, I've never seen it, but I believe that so many people have seen it, something must be up there. That's not a good argument. That's an argument for Bigfoot, for Mothman, for leprechauns. For the ISS, though, if it's so easy to see, if it's orbiting the Earth every 93 minutes and you can just take out your phone, get the app, and see it like everybody who says they see it does, then why can't you show us a video? It would be so easy. Go prove the ISS, because if you can prove the ISS, you debunk any non-spherical orbiting Earth in space model. You debunk it. You validate the science. You just ended the conversation with one video clip. You taking a video selfie with the ISS as a light streaking over your head. But nobody can do that. I mean, do I have to raise money to pay someone to do this? Like, hey, McToon, why don't you go record the ISS like you told me I could do? You know, we'll pay you to do it. They won't be able to do it. Bottom line. And that's where they're going to lose the debate. And so the existence of the ISS, though, has not been debated with the same rigor as the moon landing. And going back to Jim Fetzer's book, and I suppose we never went to the moon either, why wouldn't he ever write a book about the ISS? Why wouldn't he take down the ISS, but he's taken down the moon? Well, clearly, I think they're going to sacrifice the moon landing to preserve the outer space hoax and all the supposed progress we've made through the years as we've gone further out towards the stars and towards eventual colonization of other planets. They're going to maintain the charade. I mean, that's just, to me, that's an act of capitulation, self-gaslighting, but I think humanity's ready for it. Neat Chai Pop says it's time to end the false paradigm. Yes, I would say. Or at least expose it as a paradigm. Because what I'm trying to point out here is that we do live in the real world. There is a physical world, but then there's our shared concept. And they're not all identical. We have different experiences, different levels of education and information, etc. But our shared concept of the world is the one that is being manipulated by the reality, I would say, monopolizing entities at the top of this media pyramid. You know, they provide the context, they provide the explanations for everything. You might debunk 90% of the news stories you see, but 10 years from now, open a history book and it's going to be reporting on every debunked story as though that were the truth. Like the Wikipedia version of reality is the designated real. And what we say doesn't matter. But my point is this, is that if you recognize that there is a false worldview and there's the real thing, and there's a difference, that you can actually look at this as a model. That's kind of what I'm pointing out. Sebas says, should we rejoin the army when you know it's fake AF? Just take the money and benefits. You know, I thought about that. And I don't think I would be able to do it. Like, standing at attention for hours, following orders like a robot, 4 hours of sleep, your lifestyle is entirely regimented, controlled. You know, you're basically an automaton. And there is a lot of selflessness and service to others built into it. And yeah, it's a very, I think it's a very psychologically rewarding lifestyle, etc. But I don't know if I could make those same sacrifices or make that my life if I knew that I was essentially a propaganda mule, reinforcing beliefs in weapons of mass destruction that don't exist, that are only planted in our minds for the purposes of subjugating us. Like the military are just standing armies of believers in what is a perpetual, in a way it's like a holy war, but it's a mind war against the masses, a war of conversion, of worldview conversion and maintenance. So no, I don't know if I would be able to do that. When I was 100% brainwashed. And I was not only brainwashed, but I did so with good intentions. Like, I understand why people would join it. But I remember particularly there was this one sergeant, and I was always, because I was a commander's driver, I always overheard things. And they had this problem with this sergeant who had barbecues at his house, and he'd play InfoWars for other soldiers. And they informed, I mean, this isn't like they could tell us what to do, but they're like, told us don't be caught listening to Alex Jones. And that was the first time I heard of Alex Jones. So the first thing I do is I go to the public library on my next day off and I downloaded a bunch of MP3s, the Bohemian Grove stuff, and it's a very compelling story. And that's really where I heard about all this stuff. You know, like 5G towers, not 5G towers. It was back then it was mostly like, I mean, Alex Jones was anti-vax before it was cool. He was anti chemtrails and HARP and all the usual stuff. But basically, what they're doing is, I think they're just amalgamating a collection of conspiracy theories that serve as an anti to the pro. So you have thesis, antithesis, it's Hegelian dialectics all the way down. That's all it is on the world stage. And if you take a side, you're part of it. Like, they say you are the resistance, InfoWars, that's their slogan. Well, yeah, but resistance is futile because resistance is the other side of this bifurcated Psywar. And you're a foot soldier in it if you're part of the resistance. If you're trying to wake people up to alternative media, all you're doing is you're recruiting them into the alternate version of the mainstream, which is a subset. It's not outside of its box. And that's why truthers are still hampered, by a lot of the same fears, but their fears are amplified. So normies believe in nukes, but they're not biting their nails. They're not under their desks. But if you listen to enough truthers, you think that nukes are going to happen tomorrow, that they're going to dirty bomb us, that there's going to be the latest. They're always looking for the next plague or FEMA camps, or pretty soon there's going to be National Guard drills, and you're going to see tanks on trains. And you're going to see truthers on TikTok saying, looks like the military's coming in to take us over. It's NWO. So much doom. And that's a big part of it as well. The fear-based mind control. So it's kind of interesting too, is that the mainstreamers are subjugated by the fear and apathetic to it. The truthers, though, are activated. They're more agitated because it's more immediate. That's why I describe it as a dream world and then a nightmare. That if you wake up from the dream and you go into the nightmare, you're really not awake. You just went into a deeper level of programming. And most people find that off-putting and they go back to sleep. But nobody steps outside of the box because they're afraid to call fake fake. And what we have done, and this is separate from any other group of conspiracy researchers, whatever you want to call this, what we have done that is separate is we have organized on the basis of we're not afraid to call fake fake and proceed with the knowledge of what that fakery means in all of its implications. We're not minimizing it. We're not saying fake is merely a tactic, a force multiplier, or a way to instigate real stuff. No, they're not stimulating reality or real events with fakery. They are simulating it. Pure sim. And again, what we're doing here is separate from everything else, and it's pretty apparent that there are many things within Trutherville that we're going to be confronting. So before we confront the mainstream lies, I want to first confront the lies in Trutherville, the ones that have become kind of entrenched but have no real basis. And by exposing these, you expose the faulty reasoning, and we have to get rid of all the faulty reasoning because that's what we're ultimately doing here. The reason why otherwise intelligent people are easily duped is they're not examining media as what it actually is. Again, they mistake the filter for a window. Yeah, it's a window to the world. It shows me what's going on over there. No, that's not what it's doing. It's not informing you about the world. It's conforming you to a prefabricated world view. And I'm not scared and I'm not confused. But I do think it's peculiar when people are scared of something, but they are more concerned about making other people afraid of it rather than taking some kind of protective measures. Still waiting to see chemtrail masks. Diana South says, either way, people are subjecting themselves to fear, stress, paranoia. This can cause disease. Yeah, have you heard of climate angst? So these are examples of placebo effects, of psychosomatics, of people who are really falling ill because of stress and paranoia and fear. That, yeah, this is mind war and it does work. And it's fascinating to watch, but for the most part, it's a self-inflicted psychological wound, and it's a minefield. If you believe it all, if you're triggered by it all, you can see why truthers are often so rattled. And the wokers, too. Woketown and Trutherville represent the extremes of the political horseshoe. They're the ones who take it literally, who go deepest into the rabbit trails. And you look what happens. I mean, who wouldn't be? If I was scared of cirrus clouds and 5G towers, I don't know if I'd be able to sleep at night. And I'm trying to wake everybody up, and I have to use the 5G towers. I have to use these technologies. I have to be tracked. Now, Big Brother's watching me, and I'm just trying to wake you up about the scary clouds. Like, Trutherville is a very paranoid place. But it's really a subset of the mainstream. It's time that somebody goes through it with a fine-tooth comb. It's like Chazistan. It really is. You go through Trutherville, Mentonol addicts doubled over, you know, um, eating breadcrumbs, hooked on hopium. Most of them praying for the end of the world with their gematria calculators, calculating doomsdays. Like, it's pretty dismal. It's a very dismal place. Not very optimistic. We're in a very optimistic place here, off-world stage. Hey, look at all these white pills. Look at all these things that are not to be feared. Here's a clear view and perspective. This is the true overview effect. This is the world view. This is the world. You don't have to use this filter, but by studying it, you can know what everyone else thinks. And that's really what we're doing here. You have entire segments of the population. You have the programmed, and within that, you have subsets. You have MSM, MSM plus, you have the political horseshoe spectrum. But outside of that box, there's not a lot of us. The deprogrammed are certainly a minority. And we want to filter out the programmed because they will outnumber us. The parallel media cannot admit any of the programmed. This is a quarantine. I'm going to check you at the door. You want to get on our raft, you're not bringing these red pills with you. No propaganda mules. Our customs will turn you around. And that's because we don't want clear thinking skeptics outnumbered by a bunch of paranoids. No offense, if paranoia is your thing, but we're the most rational people, the most objectivists who are examining the world stage, and we're going to maintain this position. It's kind of ivory tower. It's inactivist. I would say that we're certainly peaceniks about it, and we're not going to be in the trenches. We're not going to be doing insurrection. So maybe it's not as fun. Joined by Oswaldo. Oh, look at this. Oswaldo has brought 5 blue wrenches. Symbia, Psyops Matter, Plain Decoded, Rafal, and Rooster Cogburn have all received blue wrenches. And of course, you'll be given access to members' videos on the main channel. We also had 5 last night that were handed out. A few new members here. Inks G, Ryler05, Daniel Morris, Oliver. And one of the things that I'm working on now is creating more members' content. And that's what's going to show up on these at these various events when we're doing these live stream in-person debates. That's all going to go into the members area first. So thank you again, Oswaldo, for keeping gas in the think tank. And it's a think tank. This isn't an echo chamber. We're certainly open, but it's a tank in the sense that you have to have protections. You have to have armor because we are going against the grain. And we're not just going against the mainstream. We're going against truthers. So you have the climate change hysterics who are mad at us, and then you have truthers who are mad at us for various things that we go after. But we're aiming at the same thing. We're replacing belief systems with an operating system rooted in skepticism directed toward media conceptualized as a monolithic entity, which is what it is. One of the big deceptions is the idea of competing networks, competing political ideologies, competing nations. It's like they're not competing with faking space. They're all on the same team. And if they were competing in psyops, let's say our nation, like this nation does psyops, this nation does psyops, and they're all psyoping everybody, but they're all essentially, no, it's centrally controlled. The space program tells you everything you need to know. There's no competition. In fact, it's degrading in many ways. I'm looking at the Chinese space station. It's like, what did they do? Like, we want a space station, but we don't have NASA's budget, so we're going to order ours on Wish. Because the Chinese space station is 10 years behind on special effects. And the ISS, as it is today, cannot compete with what we see on Netflix with science fiction. Okay, let's get into our notes. And by the way, phones are open if you want to call in. 563-999-3664. Violet Pengon says, next ISS is inflatable. Yeah, I heard there's one called Axion. It's an inflatable space station that's going to attach to the ISS. And that's where Tom Cruise is going to film his movie. And if predictive programming is anything, he's going to end up dead floating in space. He's going to die on the moon. Major Tom, Space Oddity, South Park, Tom Cruise dead on the moon next to Shamu the whale. There are a few instances of Tom Cruise dying in space. And now it's been announced that he is going to film a movie on the ISS, and he's going to be the first civilian to do a spacewalk. And I'm thinking, Tom Cruise has climbed the world's tallest towers. He's done 5,000 plus motorcycle parachute jumps off of ramps. I mean, he is a stuntman, or a daredevil on many levels, outside of just his movies. And if you look at his movies, it's a reoccurring theme: hanged man, hanging man, a lot of Christ reference. But Top Gun 2, which I've discussed at length, is just chock full of symbolism. But at the very beginning, he goes Mach 10 in this experimental craft. And if you look at the scene, it actually is a mirror of the first man going to space, Yuri Gagarin, where he goes to space, he lands in some rural area, goes into a diner, and some kid asks, "Are you a spaceman?" And he asks to use the phone. Well, that happens in Top Gun 2. They did that for a reason, to associate Tom Cruise with the first man in space who died a fiery, tragic death. So it's part of this bigger character of the hero in the sky, the sun, all this archetype building. And then, of course, he's the Jesus Christ of Scientology. And the numbers are all there. He divorced all of his wives and they turned 33. You go into Tom Cruise, his movies, Vanilla Sky, which has something of a self-sacrificial ending. That movie, predictive programming for 9/11 and for COVID. But in that one in particular, he is 33. And he has a 3-day funeral before he comes back. But yes, he's going to be part of this movie in space. Diana South says Timu space stations. Yep. Timu. And if you order it from Wayfair, it comes with children. Remember that Wayfair thing? Like, yeah, they're transporting children in filing cabinets. Busy56 says, just read the book Shakespeare Was a Woman and Other Heresies, about the authorship question. It's a great case study in how they treat anyone who questions the mainstream narrative. Fascinating. I'll have to look into it. Joseph Atwill did an interesting book on Shakespeare, which I want to look at. I'm going to have to. I had the ebook version, and I'm just not good with ebooks. I like to have it in print, even though I end up destroying them just through, like, the cover of that book I just read is just demolished. Oh yeah, Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, Joseph Atwill. And I've spoken often about Caesar's Messiah, but this one here says Christianity began as a highly complex psychological warfare campaign during the First Jewish-Roman War. An ambitious literature project began by the Caesars that was honed into a tool of statecraft, used to this day for mass pacification. Now, this ties in with the idea of mass media being a continuation of religion, and specifically the use of pageantry and superstitions by the state to control the populations. Just like the movie The Village, they maintain the village and its stasis, its peace. Nobody challenges the status quo because everybody's afraid of the monsters outside the village. Well, the monsters are the elite wearing costumes who tell them lies about how evil the world is. And they manage to keep the entire commune living in the 17th century. They don't know about planes, they don't know about the 20th century, which is just a few miles outside of their habitat. But anyway, he goes on to say, and this is a description of Secret Messiah. Secret Messiah is a follow up that could take the whole of Shakespearean scholarship in a new direction. Continuing his expose on the New Testament and who wrote the Apostle Paul and the book of Revelation, he demonstrates that the thrust of the famous playwright's work was to wreak literary revenge against the deceptions of Caesars. Anyway, he has this entire theory about how there is a subtext to Shakespeare's work that you can extrapolate from it. Very interesting. I didn't go through it all. I think I need to be more familiar with the works he's describing. But I do find his theory to be very interesting about the idea of creating a cult of personality or a royal family that I guess you would call it. It's not cult of personality, but it's like a royal cult. What is the name of that? Oh, imperial cult. And the idea of conflating, like the Roman imperial cult, conflating the leaders with gods. Identified emperors and the family with divinely sanctioned authority. And right now, I think we're moving into a new divinely sanctioned authority, and I think it's going to be introduced through the vehicle of AI. And all it takes is a superstitious public willing to accept something so absurd. And I think we're just about there. But it goes on to say the framework for the Roman imperial cult was based on Greek precedents, and it was established throughout the empire. Now, we're just basically looking at this idea, of course, of pageantry and mythology and superstition being used to dumb down the public, or at least get them subject to a priesthood. And that's what we have today. Our priesthood today are, of course, the priests of scientism, and they have you cowed because you believe that they have the ability to invoke the ultimate war god, the mushroom cloud, the atomic bomb. I mean, the atomic bomb is an example of how they can create these constructs that, for all intents and purposes, are gods. And they frighten the believers. And they can mold the world around the belief in these things. It's quite powerful if you think about it. That's why I've been saying that with the advent of the atomic bomb, they dragged humanity into an alternate reality game, a fictional universe. It's sort of like if everybody believed we were living in the world as described by the Bible perfectly, and we had unanimous agreement. Well, that would be what they have achieved here with media. But they've updated it, universalized it. Kevin Morton said Elon is in the recycling business. He's going to take the ISS space trash. Yeah, he's going to be paid $843 million, which is 666.4 million pounds, to drag the ISS into the ocean. All right, let's continue here. Busy says, I have Atwell's book, going to finish it next. Yeah, I've been listening to some Atwell podcasts. He did this incredible breakdown of J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, which is associated with various assassins. And what he uncovered in this book is references to Albert Pike, to Freemasonry, to initiation, and this theme that the people who control the world are a cult of assassins. And then you have the book's association with various assassins, like Mark Chapman, who shot John Lennon, kind of like how Taxi Driver inspired Hinckley, which is incredibly fascinating. We talked about this earlier, how Robert De Niro played the role of the assassin and the assassinated between Taxi Driver and Joker, which is based on Taxi Driver. Joker is the Travis Bickle in the Joker movie, and Robert De Niro gets the headshot, the assassination. And it's incredible because it shows you how the story that we're living through, that the historical moment we're in, is actually a story that was written a long time ago. And most of what we see, like I'm not talking about day-to-day local news, but like the big stories, like Trump on trial, De Niro's Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, this is part of a wider integrated meta script that encompasses the entertainment and the news and everything in between, and it fuses them. So they bring out a Robert De Niro, and now you have fused Trump on trial with this bigger narrative and set of threads that have already been pre-existing him and this trial. It's deep, deep programming. Thank you, Ted Stryker 2112. The IPS appreciates the support. It's going to be very helpful in the coming weeks as we start this above ground auto hoaxology 101 debate sessions. And I'm 100% ready to move forward with this. I would have started last month, but we had this stuff with the court. But that's pretty much over, and we'll see where it goes. Countdown is now 3 days. Goldfinch has 3 days to respond to the Superior Court of California District Court there in San Mateo County. If he does not, things are going to escalate. If he does, things are going to escalate. So we can look forward to an escalation in just a few days. And I'm still waiting for what I think is going to be an angry or annoyed response to my motion, to my response to their motion to dismiss, because I am attempting to, and I don't know why this would be turned down, I'm going to drag another John Doe defendant into the case, the very person who exchanged emails with our channel's enemy. But yeah, this has been 6 years in the making, and it's all coming into a culmination right now. Which is why I thought maybe it makes sense that my mirror, the rearview mirror, fell off my truck on the solstice. It's like, what could that mean if I was going to interpret something into it? Because we're talking about a period of time from the opening of this channel and the disruptions to the culmination, to the actual trial dates, to justice is what you would call it. And right leading up to the solstice, I was like noticing a few things. Like one, Goldfinch, the net's closing in. We're remonetized. It seems like we're breaking away from a lot of that. And then, well, Flat Earth Reset died. If that is who he is. I mean, we have theories, but... Okay, let's see what else we have here. Kevin Mooring says there are multiple dams ready for failure, plays into Batman and the Flood of Gotham. Oh yeah, Gotham underwater on 6/11. Flood the polls. So I put this in the newsletter, by the way. Our goals for 2024: launch the book tour, first public event in July. Punch Big Brother in the face publicly, that's the lawsuit. Launch the Insider, the IPS Insider in print, and that's going to be a monthly thing. I have a template, I have the articles, I have the writers, and I'm about ready to pull the trigger on this, and so that's about to launch. We're going to continue to develop and fine-tune our methodology as we break away into the parallel media. We leave the info war. That is what we're doing. We're conscientiously objecting to the info war. We're socially distancing from the screen and the propaganda mules who can't swim, so they won't make it to the raft. But that is another objective. We're the harbingers of the planet killer asteroid AH 2024, which is going to impact the world stage this summer. And we're not going to announce it when it finally arrives. It's going to be a surprise. IPS deep dives, and these would be the documentaries, are going to be produced. The first one I'm working on is the Q doxing one, and I'll be wrapping that one up in a couple of weeks. I have a certain interview I have to get first. But anyway, I put that in the newsletter. Everything's moving forward according to the infinite plan. So maybe that's what the broken mirror meant. But whatever the case, it seems like it's going to be an interesting July. On July 1st, Steve Bannon goes to jail. July 13th, Trump gets sentenced. This was posted on my local Reddit feed. This is someone driving around in a car, and they don't have a license plate. And it says, I understand, I also overstand don't comply to whom it matters. So this is a sovereign citizen's flex, where they're underlining over and understand. Well, they do mess with the words a little bit, and they arrive at some arcane interpretation, and they can then tell the police, I don't comply or adhere because I understand and overstand. This is a person's license plate. They're begging to be pulled over so they can use their sovereign citizen magic and school the cops. This is a thing. And I've had one of these individuals call me, and he said that I was an embarrassment to truthers because I have a license plate. It's like if I don't have a license plate, they're going to put a boot on my car and charge me $200 cash to remove it. And I asked this person, do you have a license plate? And he said, yeah. Okay. Well, when you get rid of your license plate and you put on a chemtrail mask, call me back. You have to live up to your espoused beliefs. So someone sent me this. Ever see anything like this? And I would say, yeah, it's a cloudy sky. I often get this retort from chemtrail truthers. They say, go outside. I was thinking about this. I walked to school from elementary school until after high school. I didn't even buy a car until I was in the military. So I was always noticing clouds. And then if you look at old paintings, Renaissance paintings, the skies are always just chock full of clouds, different formations. And a lot of these formations are stuff we see today. And there are explanations because the atmosphere is not homogeneous. There are conditions that you don't see because, of course, it's just temperature, things that affect how the clouds are going to form. But what we have now are this brand of truthers who now appeal to ignorance and make this argument from ignorance. Like, I don't know what that is. I can't identify it. I don't understand the phenomenon that would cause this cloud to look like this. Therefore, it's a question. And they throw the question out there, and all their friends on Facebook will say, yeah, it's obviously that's chemicals. Obviously that's poison. Obviously that's geoengineering. They're manipulating the weather. And I'm like, this looks like a nice day. To me, this is a panic. This is a panic. Skyphobia. And then if you're looking at this thinking, this is wrong, this is bad, this is scary, where's your mask? Why aren't you running for shelter? This is why I think the next operation to lock us down is going to succeed. They're going to say there's fallout. There are people who are just waiting for an excuse to be scared. And it's like, good for you. You don't have any real problems in your life to be concerned with. But talk to a meteorologist. That's who you need to talk to here. Okay, let's see here. Thank you, Symbia. The IPS appreciates the support as always. David Hoaxme has joined us. Kevin Mooring says the sky is falling. Yeah, this Chicken Little thing. And here's the story of Chicken Little. An acorn, I think it was an acorn. If it was an apple, Chicken Little would have discovered gravity, I think. But the acorn, so that's like, oh, the sky's falling. But the whole thing is the chicken gets everybody else in a panic. And what do? They run into a cave. The fox says, I will protect you, and he puts them in a cave. And what's happening here? They're funneling you into a cave. Plato's cave, the allegory of the cave. They're funneling you into a closed system with a set of presuppositions. Climate change does the same thing. They get you to adhere to this premise, and then you just run with it. And you're like, well, now what explains this? Well, it's got to be HARP. It's got to be weather manipulation. It's got to be, like, how many different ways do they have to explain why they should be afraid of the sky? And I'm saying it's a tremendous waste of time, and none of them are doing investigations. They're believers. I say chemtrail believers, not knowers. If you're a believer in chemtrails, and you want to get respect from skeptics, you have to go a step further, and you have to investigate and get more information. You have to debunk the official explanation. Every time you see clouds and you see something ominous, you should take a picture of it, right-click it, open in Google Lens, search it, and find out the textbook definition for it, and then weigh their explanation against your feeling. Like, I think this might be a modified cloud that can hurt me, or it is what the meteorologists say. And I'm not making an argument appealing to the authority of meteorologists. but I am appealing to meteorology, the study of this phenomenon, versus conjecture based on unreasonable doubt. And it's unreasonable doubt. If we were choking on chemtrails every day, if we were walking around unable to breathe whenever there's these cirrus clouds, I would say, okay, something's going on. And this chemtrail theory explains it. But the fact that there are no symptoms of chemtrail sickness, not on the level of the individual, nor does Gaia exhibit any symptoms. It's all just conjecture. Oh, it's changing, is it? No. So again, I'm just pointing it out that this is typical of this type of believer. So believers, truthers, are not skeptics. This is a place for non-belief. If you're a believer, you have to recognize that you have an inferior operating system. It's based on what? Hypotheticals, worst case scenarios. This is from Fox News. Starliner was astronauts' lifeboat. If shattered Russian satellite hits the space station, there would be no return date. Starliner, plagued by helium leaks, faulty thrusters, prepared to make an emergency evacuation. So the lifeboat connection here was mentioned by Violet, like the Titanic. So again, Titanic, lifeboats were a huge part of that story. Here's more details about SpaceX offered $843 million to destroy the ISS. The ISS is nearing the end of its operational life. It faces risks from the growing problem of space junk. Again, space junk wasn't a thing until just a few years ago. They made it real with a number of fake PR, just PR stunts. We live in a PR stunt driven reality. It says on Thursday, the 9 astronauts on board were forced to take shelter after pieces of debris from a shattered Russian satellite threatened their safety. Now, in the movie ISS, it was a war between Russia and the Americans for control of the space station. So this interesting little foreshadowing. The space station has faults and leaks, which is causing issues between crews. And it says here, it is causing issues for the contracts between the 5 participating national agencies, which marked an era of global cooperation following the end of the Cold War. So global cooperation, the Tower of Babel narrative, mankind united as one language, from the earth to space. That's what this represents, and this is how it ties into the Titanic. The Titanic, too big to fail, man's hubris. The iceberg is just symbolic of this reality check that's coming. And so the sinking of the Titanic, the sinking of the World Trade Towers, the sinking of the ISS are part of this bigger ritual takedown of the Tower of Babel. And so this is very consistent with what we've been seeing in terms of the West burning, West world. And of course, this all does tie in, like I said, to James Cameron. And James Cameron, by the way, releases Avatar 2 a couple of years ago. At the same time, the WEF was talking about flooding. And Avatar 2 is about, it's called The Way of Water. It's about this group of like Atlanteans, basically these Na'vi who are indigenous to this moon, this jungle moon, which has consciousness, like it's got a mind that you can tap into. And the premise here was that the human beings have stripped Gaia of resources. They have killed Gaia and they have not acknowledged her sentience. And then you have this brief scene in Avatar 2 where, and from the movie, I think it was it Alien or The Abyss? I think it was Alien. But anyway, it had one of the actresses from the movie Alien describing how the scientists were trying to keep it a secret that the Earth was actually alive and that they were basically killing it. So now they have to move over to Pandora in order to parasite off of it. And Sigourney Weaver. And so this was like the big secret. So the sentience of the planet was like a big theme. Well, what was the purpose of the blue marble? The blue marble was when NASA showed us the Earth in its entirety so we could see it as fragile, as being devoured by humans, in need of protection. So the picture, the image of the blue marble catalyzed the environmentalist movement. Then it made everyone in the environmentalist movement suddenly active. We got to save the earth because man is killing it. So you can see this narrative building up. Well, Avatar 2 was coming out, and I'm like, wait, everybody's blue. The whole movie is blue. It's all oceans. You're bathed in blue for 3 hours. And it's all about the sentience of Pandora and about appreciating nature. And it made an enemy out of humans, specifically Marines with guns and buzz cuts, who were against nature, toxic masculinity, like the Terminator. And James Cameron has gone on record saying testosterone is a toxin. Well, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. He's a paragon of toxic masculinity, and he's the main enemy of this in this movie. But this archetype he's created, it's there in Avatar. And my point of it is, James Cameron presenting us with Avatar was meant to foster the same Gaia worship as the Blue Marble. That it was meant to create the same idea that we must desperately fight the police state. We must fight the militant wing of capitalism that's just going to plunder the world and destroy forests and kill off indigenous culture. That's kind of what the whole movie was about. It was dances with wolves done on another planet. That was the main thrust of the story. But the idea, again, correlates to what's here on Earth, because here you have this movie, this fantasy about this lunar jungle, and Marines are taking it over, and the primitive Na'vi are fighting them off with sticks and rocks. While down here on Earth in Atlanta, so Atlanta, Atlantis, Way of Water, in Atlanta you have this place called Cop City. And Cop City was, or is, this 80-acre plot of land near Atlanta that is going to be turned into a police training camp. They're just going to clear cut it and train police there. This has been protested by environmentalists. So the environmentalists are down there in Atlanta fighting the cops, throwing rocks at them, throwing sticks at them. So you're seeing this parallel between Avatar 2 and what's happening in Atlanta, and the environmentalists fighting the police. And this whole thing was a fake construct, obviously. And I'd done a breakdown of it because the leader of the environmentalists was shot through the palms of his hands, according to the autopsy. Like Jesus, he was martyred. But they showed you pictures of his life. And in the article about this martyr for Cop City, they called him a defender of the forest. Just like the Na'vi, defending the forest against the encroaching humans. And he had this very long hair, which he was cutting off and donating to children with cancer. Well, this has a great deal of significance because in the movie Avatar 2, the Na'vi all had very long hair, which they would use to plug into the planetary consciousness. Like they'd plug it into a tree, plug it into a fish, and now they're talking to Pandora. So you have these people, these protesters in Cop City who are in touch with nature, fighting against the police who are going to tear down this plot of land and build more police training grounds. When I looked at the photos of this martyr, they had him with a couple of books on a table in front of him. One of them was Goodnight Moon, and the other one was Where the Wild Things Are. Well, Where the Wild Things Are is about this child who puts on his wolf costume, and he goes to this island, this jungle, and he becomes king of the monsters. Avatar 2 is about this human named Jake who goes into an avatar on this jungle planet and becomes their king. So you have the connection between the moon reference with Goodnight Moon and Pandora's a Moon, and Where the Wild Things Are, and the movie Avatar 2, and the activist who's part of this Avatar 2 scenario taking place in Atlanta. This is why I find James Cameron's work so fascinating, is we can connect him to the Rodney King beating, to the Cop City thing, to 9/11, and who knows where else. But when we're analyzing the meta script and getting down to who's writing it, who's a part of what operation, you can see that these same directors are involved in creating worldview on the screen and off the screen. Like there's a difference. Okay, let us continue here. Looking at some comments. Somebody says, Jake M, I can track Pokemon using a Derpal radar app on my phone. Right. There are people who will say you can see the ISS with an app, and I'm really not accepting that explanation. Kevin Mooring says, best statement I've heard from you, Tim. Why aren't they masked or locked down? Jake M says, meanwhile, every day hundreds of Americans and other countries are being displaced due to weather manipulation. See, that's what the climate change believers would have you believe. You know, the climate justice activists, the ones who believe that Gaia is a victim of capitalism and freedom and your carbon footprint, they believe that every day hundreds of Americans and people around the world in third world countries and poorer countries rather are being disproportionately affected by climate change. The rich are ruining it for them. I don't believe that. You do. Now, you don't believe it is caused by climate change, but you believe it's caused by, quote, nanotech and weather manipulation. So I'm saying here is that chemtrail belief and all the associated beliefs is the right-wing counterpart to climate change. You're basically a climate Greta but on the other side. So instead of saying we're all being victimized by the weather because of what Republicans are doing, you're saying we're being victimized by the weather because of what secret government workers are doing, what secret government programs are doing. And right wingers blame government. And I would also argue, Jake M, that you don't believe in climate change. You think it's ridiculous, but you believe in climate change from another source. So you don't know it to be true. The best you can do is provide anecdotal, but you're in the same camp as the environmentalists. And they're flustered because all day long they're trying to convince people, hey, don't you know cow flatulence is drowning polar bears, that your carbon footprint is going to have ramifications for future generations. You shouldn't be driving. You should be scaling down. You need to recycle. And we're just like, oh, we don't care. We don't believe it. We don't accept your science. So they're flustered. That's why they're mad. But I'll notice too that chemtrail people are mad because I don't believe them. I'm like, no, I don't believe you. I don't accept your fears. You can't prove any of it. The best you can do is kind of regurgitate maybe pseudoscientific claims, but what I'm saying is that you're a propaganda mule. Somebody told you to believe that. Jake M says, I don't believe in climate change. You don't believe in climate change, but you believe the climate's changing. You don't believe in climate change because liberals believe that, but you believe in chemtrail climate change because you're not a liberal. You see, autohoaxology axiom 47. If it's any of these big things, any of these big narratives or stories we're told, if it's bifurcated, if you can choose if you can choose your reality, it's fake. Like you shouldn't be able to say, well, yeah, I do believe that the world is getting worse, the climate's getting worse, but I'm pretty sure it's a government agent doing it. That's a right-wing position. But you have the same conclusion if you're on the left. Yeah, I think the weather's changing. Climate's changing. People are being displaced. But that's because of SUVs and all these Republicans. You're just using a different scapegoat for the same phenomenon. But the other common denominator, other than scapegoat and the phenomenon, is that you're both claiming something to exist that doesn't exist. Like you're both basically lying to yourselves. Jake M says, Tim, I see how they are manipulating the weather. I've been learning for 10 years. Yeah, you're saying this, but you don't have any evidence. And you can call and talk about it. I would debate you in person. You have zero evidence. And what's more is the weather manipulation theory or claims serves the power elite. They need you to believe that there is this phenomenon of man destroying the world and man needs to be restrained. Like, what is the solution to the problem? Well, regulate the private sector. That'll solve climate change. What is the solution to this? Ultimately, it's that man needs to be constrained. And I don't think that anthropogenic climate change is a thing. But there's a reason why you believe it, and I think part of it is you have a certain amount of bandwidth. Like, how much attention can you give to your own life? How much do you need to give to viable threats? Like, you lock your doors, you buckle up, you are making decisions with safety in mind, obviously. And these are important things. It deserves your attention. But do you need to give bandwidth to stuff that doesn't exist? Dinosaurs, aliens, perhaps planet killer asteroids. If you really believed in space junk, wouldn't you be wearing a helmet? If you really believed in chemtrails, you would be wearing a mask. But what's more, you're believing in something that you don't have evidence for, and do you have room for it? Like, I don't really have room to care about hypotheticals like that. It doesn't concern me. Jake M says, what happened in Dubai a couple months ago? Major flooding. I would do this. If we were debating, I would say reframe your question as a statement. Because one of the dishonest tactics of the chemtrail believer is to make claims by asking questions and shifting the burden of proof. I don't know what that is. What is it? You tell me. But you're saying you don't know what it is, as though it's not known. So you said, what happened in Dubai? It's like, oh, what? Nobody knows? There's not an answer? Are you the first person to ask that? What is the answer? And why are you asking me? You should be telling me, a couple of months ago in Dubai, chemtrails caused a flood. Make an affirmative statement. Don't hide behind a question mark. That's a bad faith question. Now, he says, I'm typing on a phone, dude. Seeing if you have an answer. I know what happened. Well, then tell us. This isn't a game. You're not the Riddler. This is what Q does. And I was annoyed by Q at the very beginning. Oh, he's just asking questions. Just asking questions is not exactly the same thing as seeking answers. I can ask questions, but I'm not going to collect questions, just sit there like I'm the Riddler. Like, oh, I'm just asking questions. I'm like the Sphinx. I'm just here to puzzle you with riddles. No, if you're not the Riddler, you shouldn't just be asking questions. You should be finding answers for these questions, not treating these questions as unsolvable or unsolved. I'm trying to help you think, bud. It's all out there. No, I don't need your Socratic method of breadcrumbing me and leading me to Trutherville, which is what they do. They say, I don't know what does this. Do your own research. And then they give you a few links, and before you know it, you're in an echo chamber of people who are all terrified of cirrus clouds. I think that the honest approach is to say, weather weapons were used in Dubai to cause a flood. And then we can examine that claim and we can find out, is there any substance to it? And I have looked into it, and I would say that there is no substance to it. Thank you, Duos Impera. IPS appreciates the support. And one more point. If we were debating chemtrails or weather manipulation, I would ask you to bring evidence. Can you imagine me debating somebody who believes in climate change? Like, let's say I'm debating Al Gore. Don't you think I'm going to ask him for evidence? He'll say, but Tim, the capitalists are manipulating the weather with their overconsumption of fossil fuels. They're not paying enough taxes. They're manipulating the weather, and they're going to cause the ocean levels to rise. And I would say, well, where's your evidence, Al Gore? Can you provide it? So here you are saying, Tim, they're manipulating the weather. They're controlling it. They just caused a flood in Dubai. Okay, well, show me your evidence. And if you fall short, like Al Gore would fall short, then I'm under no obligation to believe you. But then my question is, what's your incentive? Because Al Gore has something like I think it's 16. He has like a $16 million air conditioning bill. So he's doing it because he's getting paid. Al Gore is making bank on the scam. Are you making money off of it? Are you profiting off of this? Because I can see his incentive. Al Gore makes a lot of money off of scaring people about the climate. But what is your incentive? Are you warning people? Like, warning everybody, get better umbrellas. because they can flood us with these airplane contrails. Like, are you warning us? Are we supposed to take action? Are you a PSA? I'm a walking PSA. Just letting you guys know you didn't know. Yeah, that can fry your brain, that 5G tower. Those clouds aren't real clouds. That's toxic. That's aluminum, barium, and that will give you Alzheimer's. And then that over there, and you just walk around. Just I'm just being helpful, letting you know that if you're not paranoid, you're not paying attention. Diana South says I have agoraphobia. Yeah, that's your choice. Agoraphobia, be afraid to go outside because of climate change or chemtrails, or like algoraphobia. Fear the person who's trying to push the fear on you. So just to round this out, I would argue that any chemtrail pusher is a propaganda mule for alternative media. And they're saying the same exact thing as the chemtrail believers. Mango says, I just shared the new Wonka with my real mom. It's a good movie. Oh, there's a new Wonka. I'll check it out. I want to see if it has any connections to Elon Musk, who's got some Willy Wonka built into his personage. He's a combination of Wonka, Von Braun, Constantine, Iron Man, and Henry Ford. But the Wonka has a lot of interesting connotations when you get into the subterranean travel through the tunnels, combine that with Hyperloop. And Musk drew this connection to himself by purchasing Willy Wonka's home.
One is born, lives their life.
I have a couple clips here I was going to play. I want to go through my notes though. A few more things. We already covered this one. 9/11 made Francis Ford Coppola abandon Megapolis. Again, I'm just pointing this out, that the fact that he abandoned it over 9/11, and then he puts it out again, and it has space junk from a Russian satellite being a big part of it, and then we have the space junk from a Russian satellite just now making the news. Highly, highly significant. No coincidences on the world stage. Like, there are coincidences. There are meaningful coincidences, there are meaningless coincidences. But like in a book or on a movie, what happens at the end that is foreshadowed at the very beginning is a result of scripting. It's not a coincidence. Similarly, events on the world stage are not coincidences, but nor are they mystical, synchronistic experiences. They're not messages from the universe. No, you demystify it and you realize that no, it's like a movie. But these movies aren't bound by one screen. These meta-scripted narratives are movies that play out on the world stage over sometimes decades. Isabel Ann says, IPR, awesome to listen to on long drives. Just drove past a cow flatulence pasture. Yep, that's drowning polar bears. Cows versus polar bears. They're fighting off. There's this relationship. They're saying, yep, they're causing the ice caps to melt. As though polar bears can't swim. Environmentalists don't believe polar bears can swim. Jake M says, there's an atmospheric river in the sky. Most people don't know that. The sole reason for the tower over your head is strictly for weather warfare. Nothing to do with cell phones. Research is free. Well, how do you explain weather before cell phone towers? How do you explain the paintings from the Renaissance where you see clouds, for example, that look exactly like the clouds we see today? Like, the skies have always looked the same. The idea that they've changed is one of the big truther-isms that I totally dispute. Like, when I was a kid, the sky was blue and the sun was yellow. No, when you were a kid, you watched a lot of cartoons, I'm sure, where things are simplified. But no, there have been no qualitative changes. Some will say, well, you don't remember chemtrails because you weren't alive before or you don't remember the time before chemtrails. And I do. And when I was a kid, there weren't chemtrails, and now there are. I hear these stories from people, always anecdotal. I don't know what the purpose is behind lying. And that's what I'm asking this other person, this commenter. Are you warning us? Are you trying to save lives? Like, what is the purpose here behind this alarmism, which is what it comes down to? Someone sent this link, Infinite Jack, proof of no chemies. What are we looking at here? I'm not sure what we're looking at, but there's one point here that I will raise in the debates that no one has an answer for, and that is the predictability thing. How come you cannot predict chemtrails? Can you tell me, like, let's just say between now and 4th of July, will there be chemtrails over your head? You would have no way to answer. You would say, I don't know. Depends on if the Illuminati put in the order for them to spray us on this day. Maybe they won't spray us on the 4th of July because too many people are outside. I hear this stuff all the time. Like they switch it on and off, but they cannot predict it. But if you were to ask the question a different way, will there be contrails this day? You can find meteorological data and websites that will tell you whether or not you will see contrails on those days. And they're basing it not on paranoid speculation about secret government operations, they're basing it on climate. And it's that simple. Infant Jack said one plane and no CT, one width. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, this is a common one. Well, they'll show you two planes at different altitudes. One has a quote trail, a spray, one does not. And this is solely a byproduct of altitude. Contrails are not a spray. It's the result of hot air. But no, you do not have you don't have the correct answer there. Altitude, the sky is not homogeneous. And this is saying that some are spraying and some aren't. Another problem with that whole proposition is the spray itself, the quantity, the volume that would be required to go across these vast distances could not be held in a single airplane. But hot air can leave trails in the high altitudes as long as it's up there. So I see what you recorded, but again, I think you're right. It's an altitude temperature thing. But a lot of people will try to um, provide explanations and like look, you're going to have to really start with the official explanation, whether you like it or not. You have to know the other side to debate against it. And the other side, yeah, this makes sense. So the other plane, if you look at it, it's actually much higher. And the difference is maybe even just a couple thousand feet. But I found this article where NASA was talking about contrails, and like there's so many contrails that it's heating up the Earth. That's what they say. I don't believe it. You might. But they're saying it's contrails, that cirrus clouds are doing it. And they said that they can reduce contrails by changing their altitudes, changing the flight paths. Like it's optional. We don't have to have those. It's not a spraying program, it's a byproduct of altitude and temperature. We explain this a lot, but that's because we're leading to a debate. And we're going to debate this subject to death probably this August, and then it's done. And I'm trying to find representatives who are willing to stand up and defend their views. And the most they can walk away with after the debate will be, I believe in it because I want to believe in it, not because I have facts. And I'm not worried enough about it to wear a mask, even though I maintain it's poisonous. Like they can believe it with all the contradictions they want. We don't need to convert people who are easily convinced or who want to believe nonsense. In fact, we want to exclude those views from the parallel media. Jake M says, who is they? They said contrail appear at different heights. Yeah, this is a fact. Jake M. Every 1,000 feet up, it's 2 degrees colder. Like, this is not a mystery. Contrails are a well understood phenomenon, and they have been mislabeled by bad actors who are misguiding free thinkers or skeptics of mainstream media into the alternative media realm. And so, what I'm saying here is that your knee jerk rejection of contrail science is actually reality denialism. Like some will say, oh, you can't. One person accused me of basically being like NASA, since I agree with them about contrails. It's like, well, I also agree with NASA that the sky is blue. You can't just knee jerk take the opposite position. And chemtrail theory is an anti-position. It's a reactionary. You didn't arrive at that organically. And it's the diametrical opposite point of view of chemtrail, of climate change. Climate change, chemtrail. But now, one of the reasons why we hammer this thing to death is that when we kill chemtrail theory, and we will, it's going to rattle a lot of cages. And we need this to happen. We need a lot of the people who've been promoting this for years to be flustered trying to backtrack. And recently I confronted Witsit Gets It about it. And I revealed that he will employ whatever logical fallacies, gish gallop, filibustering, and word salad he needs to make a point. He's not a logical person. He he actually employs what's called the fallacy, where he spouts logical fallacies as though it makes his case, which it really doesn't. But I had a feeling that he would be afraid to answer me because I would be able to expose that he's dishonest, and I did. Jake M., you're not a meteorologist, so I'm not going to accept your expertise on the conditions of the atmosphere or the reasons why the clouds appear as they do, or I'm not going to accept your rejection of anthropogenic cirrus clouds and what causes them. The fact that they are predictable and your chemtrails are not already debunks your claim. I don't have to debunk what hasn't been bunked, whether it's a Mandela effect or a chemtrail fantasy or a climate change fantasy. Your your fantastical explanation for the weather and all this stuff doesn't get a seat at this debate table unless you bring evidence, and you have not. Violet Pengon says, Jake M., is your house weatherproof? Yeah, are you wearing a raincoat? Do you have an umbrella? Do you have a life preserver for weather manipulation? Because they might Dubai your town. They might fly some planes over and spray the clouds, and you have a flood. They'll turn on HARP and point it at you. Space junk helmets, life preservers, PPE, masks can never be safe enough from all the things to be afraid of. Jake M. says chemtrails are predictable. You're 100% wrong. Okay, then predict them. If they're predictable, predict them. And if they're predictable, you're basically saying bad guys are going to commit a crime in a few days. It'd be like saying, I mean, you are saying that the bad guys are going to dump poisons on a bunch of children at barbecues on this 4th of July weekend. Because that's going to happen. People are going to be barbecuing on the 4th of July, and airplanes are going to be flying over. And in your view, that means that they're going to be poisoned. If you can predict that, then why aren't you calling the cops? Hey, on this 4th of July weekend, there's going to be a lot of us outside, and we don't want to be poisoned. So I'm going to just let you know that there's a biological warfare operation going on against the Geneva Convention, genocide, and it's from the airports. Like, you're not going to do that because you don't care about the children, or you don't care enough. Like, at least you could do is mask them or pass out flyers, I suppose. I guess I'm very disappointed that chemtrail believers never quite become the activists that the climate change nutters are. But anyway, you're not a meteorologist and your claims are baseless. But my only interest really here at this point is wondering why. Like, who are you trying to convince? You're not going to convince skeptics. So you're in the wrong place if you think you're going to spread your fearful interpretation of mundane phenomenon. You're not going to spread paranoia and superstition here. You're not going to get any traction. Like, we're not scared like you are. So you're going to have to find another group who are more receptive to collecting fears to showcase their truthiness. Because being a truther is having a large collection of things to be afraid of that nobody else is afraid of. It's almost like sin. You're like, oh, that's sinful, can't say this on that day, can't do this. Like sin, superstition, it just seems like a whole lot of mind control. Like you got a voice in your head. So Jake M. is here attempting to convince us that there are things to be afraid of. And I'm saying the mainstream media does this all day, constantly scaring people, spreading narratives, fear this, fear that. And then I see truthers, and you guys are just as fear obsessed. And I'm not a truther. And I am distinctly, I'm making the point here. I want to make a distinction, rather, between truthers and skeptics, between believers and knowers. You are a believer. You believe something. You don't know it to be true. Believing in something doesn't make it real, but you can act as though it's real, but you don't have any evidence. And if you did have evidence, you're awfully calm about it for somebody who's making such extraordinary claims. Again, at least climate change activists walk the talk. When was the last time you did any kind of activism to save the world against this weather manipulation threat? You haven't done a thing. But anyway, I'm chemtrail fatigued. We all know it's a psyop and it tricks certain truthers who are not aware of sophistry involved in it. T Latte says when they said that CO2 from plants is different from CO2 from humans, I knew something was not right about the climate change narrative. Well, the climate change narrative, like the concept of sin being reintroduced through the virus, climate change brings about guilt, and it creates an original sin, your carbon footprint, where we are all sinners. We are all damaging Gaia. God's mad at all of us. Gaia's mad at all of us. We have to purify. We have to live a certain way. And religions have always used this construct of sin, of error from the eyes of God to correct people's behavior. And I'm saying that climate change has been used to modify behavior at scale, to regulate marketplaces, to justify people feeling guilty for being consumers, to kind of guilt them out of it. So it's all about control. So I'm just saying here, like I'm inoculated against mind war. I don't buy into any of this stuff. Nobody's going to control me by trying to scare me or convince me that I'm a CO2 carbon super spreader and I need to stop it. So then when I have truthers who have broken free from, like this guy Jake M says, I don't believe in climate change. So you broke free from that, but now you believe in something worse. You go from the dream world where maybe not our collective carbon footprint is going to negatively adversely affect the weather to this is a nightmare scenario where the bad guys have 5G towers and they can turn on the floods at any moment. Like you live in a different world than me. And yeah, Kevin Moore, and chemtrails is chicken feed. Absolutely. And I believed in it in a half-assed way. I didn't dispute it, but I remember being told about it. Like, oh yeah, they're spraying us. What are they spraying? And I just thought it was exhaust, which was pretty bad in my view. But now that I look at it, it's like it's not even that. It's really just ice. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's really a easy to explain phenomenon, and I don't think it's bad. In fact, I find it attractive. I think it's beautiful, like watercolor in the sky. In a way, it is. Like, where are we as a species? We're living lives of, increasingly better standards of living, but we're at the point where if we're bored, we fly. Humans fly now. And you can see because they're leaving trails in the sky when they go up 30,000 feet. To me, that's progress. It's like, look, we fly now. We've transcended. And so I don't look at it with any kind of negativity or apprehension. It's uplifting. And at no point am I ever afraid of the climate or the weather being manipulated by bad actors. But I think that there's this classical thing, this traditional fear in all religions, storm gods. So I think with this new religion, they have replaced storm gods. Like you got the war god in the atom bomb. Do you duck and cover for the atom bomb? If you duck and cover for the atom bomb, then you're terrified of that war god. Do you propagate? Do you tithe? Do you give money to the Church of Global Warming? Well, you probably do. And that's because Gaia is mad at us. Another God construct. Here I am deconstructing God constructs. And I think these God constructs are based on primal fears. And I think that there's something in us that makes us susceptible to being apprehensive about the weather. And storm gods epitomize this. And it's always the storm gods who are boss, like Zeus, Jehovah. These are the top dogs, the top gods. They're all storm gods. And I think these storm gods are constructs used by the elite to control sheeple, to manipulate people. The whole Chicken Little thing, it's all manipulation.
90 seconds.
So when it comes to alternate fears or chemtrails, I'm like, look, you're in the wrong place. You're selling it to the wrong person here. I almost want to ban it. Like, I'm not taking any more calls on chemtrails if someone isn't wearing a mask. If I don't hear you speaking through a mask, no thanks. Louise Ortiz says, "What's HARP? Can they create a hurricane?" I think this is another one of these myths. See, this is the thing. 9/11 is a contemporary myth. The bowl cut shooter, a mythological creature. These are not real. Planet killer asteroids, myths. Flood myths. Neo eschatology. HARP. Yeah, it's a high frequency active auroral research program. There is something called HARP. But the claim that it can make hurricanes is a conspiracy theorist myth. Well outside the capabilities of it and outside the scope of natural science. This is the same thing with geoengineering stratospheric aerosol injections, where you can say it, it sounds impressive. Oh, aren't you worried about stratospheric aerosol injections and high frequency active oral research programs? It's like, wow, that's scary. What's a high frequency active research program going to do to me? But it's just tantamount to a word salad and gish gallop. Because when you really get down to it, stratospheric aerosol injections is largely untested. Geoengineering doesn't really work. There's no such thing in any meaningful sense. And even if there was, geoengineering is to counter climate change. So before you say geoengineering is real, first prove to me that climate change is real. Diana South says both sides of climate and chemtrail are afraid of the planes and what the planes are doing. Let's get rid of planes. Yeah, if you believe in climate change, I don't want to see you flying. If you believe in chemtrails, don't get on a plane or you're complicit in mass murder. Like, if you're a chemtrail believer, let me know how many times you've flown and do you feel bad for what you've done? I would feel terrible. Like, yeah, I was on this plane and we were doing biological warfare, chemical warfare. We're killing Gaia, but we're also creating future Alzheimer's patients. Oh, all those children down there in the playgrounds. Yeah, as I'm up here on the plane, flying to a conspiracy theory conference where we're going to talk about chemtrails. Yeah, I'm a participant. Like, you're complicit in genocide if you fly on airplanes. If you believe in climate change or chemtrails. I don't, so it doesn't matter to me. I can fly with no guilt. But if you fall for either one of those, you're also mind controlled. You're in a box. MSM Plus. I appreciate the comments of Jake M., our resident skyphobic, but I'm letting you know that your fear has no power here. It may overpower you, but it has no influence here. Like, we're inoculated against it. You need to find mind aids patients, people with no mental immune system, and spread it there. But again, my question is, like, what is your motivation? Al Gore gets paid. You're not getting paid. You're trying to scare people. Very interesting. I find it very interesting. Like, this is a Saturday afternoon. I don't have any reason to devote my time to scaring anonymous strangers in the most skeptical think tank on earth with basic kindergarten level trutherisms that nobody here believes in. T Latte says, speaking of Alzheimer's, what do you think about the debate? Craziest thing I've seen in a presidential debate. There's been some speculation from the left-leaning podcasts I've listened to. Some suggest that this was sabotage, that they purposely had Trump and Biden juxtaposed on the screen so we could all see it very clearly and nakedly. That way there would be some kind of a demand for a replacement. They knew something was coming, though, so I kind of doubt that. If they really wanted to destroy Biden intentionally, they would have let an audience in. They didn't let anybody in. It was a closed movie set. 2-minute delays. But as far as Biden goes and his cognition and all that, I think they call it sundowning because the following day in the afternoon he did fine. They should have had the debate in the middle of the day. But a lot of the people on that side don't care. They think he can do the job and that the fact that he's truthful matters more than Trump, who was able to say whatever he wanted unchallenged. Is he faking it? I don't know. Look, to be straight honest about this, I don't know anybody that looks like Joe Biden. When I look at his face, he does not look like okay, Vice President Joe Biden looked like a normal person. President Joe Biden does not look the same. There's a qualitative difference, and I don't think a facelift explains it. Not one bit. I mean, it looks masky as hell. It looks like a mask. And I understand makeup and lighting, but his facial expressions, the way his face creases, it doesn't have the elasticity of the face of an 80-year-old man, but it looks more like a movie prop, a movie. It looks like a Halloween mask. I mean, it's really bizarre. And so I guess the question here is things being as staged as they are, as manufactured as they are, they could not allow, I don't think they would allow for any major glitches in what they're rolling out. So I would kind of suggest it's more likely it's somebody with a Joe Biden mask. It's not like it's outside the realm of possibility. Look up Jonah Mendez, CIA Master Disguise, 27 years. They could have half a dozen Joe Bidens in the room, and you wouldn't know which one's the real one. And the truth is, the real one might already have retired to Epstein Island somewhere, or some place out there. Meanwhile, this new person has moved in. And when I look, Ollie Goering says this: nose is too narrow for an 80-year-old man. Usually they get big as they age. Yeah, I wondered about that too. Does somebody in their 70s get rhinoplasty? Possibly. Possibly. I'm still somewhat convinced, and you can compare skulls. Compare the skulls of Vice President Joe Biden to President Joe Biden, and in between the two, put the head of Beau Biden. You know, Beau Biden died at 46, brain tumor, or he was repackaged and became president at 46. Who better to play Joe Biden than one of his sons? And the skull of Beau Biden aligns with President Beau Biden's skull, which is smaller than Vice President Biden's skull. Skulls don't shrink. But, it could be a double playing up the role. Again, 2 minute delay, we don't know. But I don't think they take chances. And so I'm inclined to think it's some kind of a deep fake. You don't have to bring in James Wood, whose nose wouldn't fit, or Jim Carrey. It could be anybody. I don't know. But I'm thinking, Beau Biden would be a good fit. Dinah South says, watch, the next Joe will have a bigger nose like the rubber baby eyes incident. Yeah, that's right. I'd called out the rubber babies with closed eyes as a giveaway that they're fake. And the next thing you know, they show us rubber babies with open eyes. So here's a picture of Joe and Beau, the original Joe who looks like a human being. And just look at the skin. I mean, this looks like a human being. And then Beau Biden. And I'm thinking the new Joe looks like Beau. That's where I'm at with this. Okay, what else is going on? I guess 4th of July is coming up. Steve Bannon will be in jail. Mountain Dew is releasing Liberty Chill for the 4th of July. Everything Mountain Dew is PSYOP predictive programming. And we had analyzed this one. This one's got 50 flavors in one. So it's got some significance to America, the 50 states. But here's what you have on the logo for Liberty Chill. Now remember, Maui Blast. Maui Blast had Dew on it, direct energy weapon, as Maui had those extreme fires, if you believe it. Then you had the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and he wrote the Star Spangled Banner, and Mountain Dew has the Star Spangled Splash. So now we have Liberty Chill, which I think may have to do with nuclear winter. You have the Statue of Liberty on a motorcycle, and there's fireworks exploding behind her, and the crown has fallen off. She's dropped the torch, dropped the crown, and she's riding away on a motorcycle, like she's leaving. So Liberty Chill could mean that they're freezing Liberty or chilling it. Nuclear winter fallout could be implied here. I don't think I'm reading too much into it. I mean, the torch looks like a missile heading down towards the Earth. But yeah, Liberty Chill. Anyone have any thoughts on this? Seems portentous. Yep, nice obelisk there. Isabel Ann says when they developed the waterfront in Brooklyn with high rise condos, they dug up all the groundwater for underground garages. Now it floods and they blame it on climate change. Interesting. Yeah, they can manufacture it. Like every year we have summer, but you wouldn't think that the people in the news are aware of this. They're like, oh, it's June and it's hot again. Climate change. Too much fossil fuels being used. You're walking around too much. Your carbon footprints. Republicans are doing this. The rich people have destroyed the climate for the poor. It's like, no, this is called summer. Okay, by the way, I did block Jake M because he was spamming us with propaganda, chemtrail propaganda. Chemtrail propagandists need to spend some time becoming investigators and researchers. Go out and do some research. You tell me to go outside and look up, I do. Go photograph some of the stuff. Go to the airport. Talk to the DHS. Record it. Sue the airlines. Take action if you really believe in it. But no, I'm not interested in believers and what they believe. I mean, I might as well let in, unicorn spotters and Bigfoot enthusiasts into the conversation. And ISS, I saw the ISS yesterday. Oh, really cool. Join us. Nope. If we let in every bearer of false witness, it would dilute the truth. It would dilute our perspective. There's not enough. We could scale this up. It's not like this is a tiny ivory tower thing. We can scale the parallel media to as many people as can possibly arrive here. I mean, it's just a matter of refusing to believe anything on the screen that's not attended by facts and suspending judgment. Very easy to do. Minor tweak. But we can scale it up endlessly, but we're not going to be able to do it until we make a firm distinction between believers and seekers. And so if you're a true seeker, you're not going to content yourself with spreading rumors about what might be the case. You're going to get to the bottom of it. Thrustazar says, I saw Jim Carrey playing as Tony Clifton. Oh yeah, okay. Tony Clifton, I remember that character. This is from Andy Kaufman. There's this conspiracy theory that Andy Kaufman faked his death and and came back as Andrew Breitbart. And the timelines match up. And he did say that he would come back as some kind of someone in politics. Let's see here. Yeah, Breitbart's last laugh. You can find some articles about it, and people have noted this resemblance. But yeah, exactly. He was kind of an Andy Kaufman type in many ways. But some have suggested that Andy Kaufman literally faked his death and literally came back as Andrew Breitbart. And if you look at them side by side and adjust for age, you could somewhat make the case. I think it's somewhat believable. It would mean that Breitbart wasn't 43 when he died, but more like probably 53, which I think you could see that as well. Symbius says 33 in the Mountain Dew logo. Let me take a look. Two pentagrams, you got the obelisk. And yeah, the Statue of Liberty doing wheelies on a motorcycle, dropping the torch and crown, is very concerning to me. And Liberty Chill says something like, yeah, a chill on our freedoms. Liberty will chill. Nuclear winter. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah, MW 311. I would say, yeah, that's definitely 33. But they have a record now, so we're watching the Mountain Dew. They have an inside scoop. I believe there was even another one, a Mountain Dew, that had some kind of a blackout theme to it. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Oh yeah, Pitch Black. Mountain Dew Pitch Black. Yeah, they're heavily tied into the PSYOP entertainment complex. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Going through your comments. Amazing how when you go against something, a lot of its defenders show up like it's got an immune system. It used to be the case there'd be some shooting and would be online live, like, oh, this is fake. And you'd have people saying, you can't call it fake. You can't say crisis actor. What about the families? Would you say that if the family was right there? We have these advocates who would flood the chats trying to control what we think. That's why we have wrenches to ban these people. We want to ban the people who think that they can come in and tell us what to think, even though they're anonymous and we don't know who they are. It's like some anonymous propaganda mule spamming the chat wants to direct the conversation and the thoughts of 200 people based on anecdotal paranoid rants. Like, no, that's not actually going to work here. Interesting way to spend an afternoon. We're handing out white pills. We're inoculating people against mind war, and occasionally we do get some info warriors trying to drag us to the front lines. Like, come fight the fight with us. Get active. Be mad. You're a victim too. I have this incredible rant I was listening to this morning. Maybe I should play it. Some lady in Florida was just going off on how chemtrails cause Alzheimer's, which is what a lot of people believe. I mean, what won't they believe? It's kind of a catch-all. Everything can be blamed on it. But she was going into this long rant about it, and I could see why people would be scared. But towards the end of it, she was just going off on how, we have to be willing to fight. We have to stand up, and we can't cower. It's like, fight the chemtrails. Like, how do you fight that? And it just sounds to me like a lot of virtue signaling at this point. And there is nothing to fight. It's just agitation for its own sake. Sort of like, was it Extinction Rebellion? These environmentalists, they can't get any attention. So they resort to extraordinary tantrums like playing dead in public. Kevin Mooring says, I told you chemtrail auto believers are sky Karens. Yes. Well, this is the thing, too. We're talking about a world of beliefs contrasted with the deprogrammed position of recognizing the worldview as a construct. So we've stepped outside of it to a large degree in order to appreciate it as such. And I think that's kind of what we're experiencing here is a bit of a clash. And that's what we want. We're experiencing a clash between those who are non-skeptical and those who are, those who adopt beliefs and those who seek to know. And the thing is, truthers have just stacks of beliefs, just folders full, boxes, just all these things they believe because they find them believable. And what we're doing is we're going the opposite direction of the subtractive or the negative route, where we're deleting stuff that we can't verify. So they may have an entire closet full of DVDs and documents that show all these things that you could be afraid of. And here we are with question marks and a lot of nothing. We don't have a lot to replace. And I also think, too, that part of the belief in chemtrails is victim consciousness. Like, we're victims. We are victims, so let's have solidarity against them. So this we are victims. Same with the climate change people. We're victims of the right wing, of the capitalists. We're victims of the rich. So this victim consciousness is part of the polarization because you're victimized by the other side. Climate change people, victims of climate change, are victimized by the rich people, rich capitalists. The chemtrail affected are victimized by the government, by secret government programs. You see how that works? Right wing versus government, left wing versus private sector. And I think it's helpful to expose this because when you expose the structure, then it's easy to step outside of it and to stop believing in it. But if you don't see the structure, if you're still inside of it, yeah, you might be stuck in your chemtrail box and you're gonna be mad at me because I'm saying it's bullshit, which it is. I'm calling you paranoid, which you are. I'm calling it a phobia, which again, it is. It is a phobia. And it is nothing to be proud of. You shouldn't virtue signal for it. In fact, you're losing the intellectual and moral high ground when you spread rumors about non existent threats. Like, it's not virtuous. It's actually as bad as the mainstream stuff. Propaganda mules are not welcome here. Weaving spiders, come not here. Isn't that what it says at the Bohemian Grove? Kevin Mooring says they say all the government docs leaked it, but they don't trust government docs on JFK. Yeah, Gets It had an argument for chemtrails. He said, "Of course I believe in chemtrails because secret government documents talked about it and the Air Force talked about it." Oh, I see. But they only trust them if they're leaked. So this is a trick. Left wing believes government. Government speaks the truth. Government is the voice of God. The right wing doesn't believe government, but they will believe anything if they find it for themselves from an alternative source or if it's leaked. So they don't believe the government lies, but if it's leaked, they assume it's true. It's reverse psychology. If you believe leaked documents, but you don't believe them generally, it's reverse psychology, and it's also what's called a limited hangout. The limited hangout is an operation where they know that some information may leak, and they want to control any leaks, and they also want to manage information. So the ones who want to control information will provide as a source something new and then attract whoever is seeking that, and then they can kind of control the flow. This is from Wikipedia. A limited hangout or partial hangout is a tactic used in media relations, perception management, politics, and information management. This is a common tactic used by political extremist groups at both ends of the spectrum and intelligence. The practice of revealing only part of a truth about a situation as damage control when a cover story can no longer be used. But the point of it is this. The leaked document is now seen as a source. So other people go to the leak to see what else comes out. Now they can control what's leaked. And they can control anybody who gets that information. Now they know who has it and what the spin is on it. And then they can create an entire community of people informed about this and then direct it accordingly. And prevent them from ever finding the entire truth about it. But the tactic here is pretty clear. You hang out a clue and let them do their own research. When a truther says, do your own research, they're not saying, do a thorough explanation of the facts, do a rigorous scientific exploration here, make an effort to document it all and provide sources. When they say, do your own research, they're like, here's a rabbit trail, follow it. And it feels like they're discovering stuff, which is a marketing tactic where you get people to discover things instead of being told, but they're still being told, just indirectly. But yes, leaked documents are not trustworthy it's not a source. You can't cite it as a source. I found a leaked document that says this, therefore it's true. And that was Witsit Gets Its best defense of his claim. And I wanted to get this out there because I wanted to make the point that his claim rests on a false argument, on the idea that you can appeal to the authority of government documents as long as the government didn't give them to you directly. Like, that's not an argument. And now he has to rest on that. He has to stand by that or make a retraction. But that is the best he could do. And he's got a sharp mind. And if the best he can do is cite a government document, then I have to ask you, why is that any more believable than climate change science, which governments do believe, and they implement their belief into policy? Kevin Mooring says WikiLeaks. Oh yeah, WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks created this whole Q phenomenon. The whole idea of do-it-yourself media, the people's media, has always been controlled. And WikiLeaks is this false savior for them. Oh, this is the truth they don't want you to know. Well, how come WikiLeaks doesn't dox crisis actors? How come it doesn't expose the metascript or the real purpose of predictive programming? How come it doesn't explain the extent of the fakery or any of this stuff? There's nothing in WikiLeaks that goes outside of the MSM controlled box? Nothing. There are no clues. If you went through everything that was, quote, leaked, you would never arrive at the truth. I mean, the only leaks, and they weren't really leaks, the only real clues or insights we've had have been bad performances, bad editing. But these are things that we are discovering for ourselves. And some would say, I remember early on in this conversation about the flat earth and fake NASA, people would say, well, maybe they want us to know. So they're doing special effects, they're doing bad effects, that they're intentionally making it bad to let us know. Like they're revealing it. And the QAnoners were hooked on this hopium. They were hooked on it. They believed, yeah, the truth is so big. If they just told us all at once, we would go crazy. So they're just going to slowly drip the truth. They're going to let us know in hints. Oh, this was fake. This was fake. And eventually it's all going to be exposed. I used to hear this from a lot of people. Like, oh, they're waking up. People are waking up. Fly Me to the Moon. The movie's coming out. They're going to tell us about the fake moon landing. And they follow along, hopefully, thinking that, yes, good guys are in control and everything's going to be revealed. It's like, no, not even close. Nothing is being revealed on purpose. Nobody would be calling out the fakery if it wasn't for us. Truthers don't care about fakery. It goes against their fear-based narratives. Truthers don't want to know that chemtrails are fake. They don't want to know that weather manipulation conspiracy theories are all based on misunderstandings and misinformation. Just like normies don't want to know that moon landings are fake or climate change is fake. It's fascinating because belief in fakery is the norm. All right, let's move on. I had a few more notes here, things earmarked. They blocked likes on Twitter, and I find that to be highly annoying because I used to use the likes on Twitter to earmark things that were worth talking about. Okay, here's an example of the chemtrail insanity. Wall Street Apes says this is not a conspiracy theory anymore. He has 425,000 followers. See, you don't get to have 500,000 followers unless you're willing to push propaganda. Okay, and it looks like some people are having issues with sound. That's weird. No longer a conspiracy theory. Former senator confirms that there are toxic chemtrails harming your health. You better wake up and fight now. Now, funnily, Kevin Mooring had said that the chemtrail people are sky Karens. Well, let me play this clip from Karen Johnson, who is claiming that chemtrails are killing us, poisoning us, and we have to fight against it.
My name is Karen Johnson. I served in the Arizona State Legislature for 12 years. I was in the House for 8 of those years and in the Senate for 4 of those years. When you see a plane fly overhead, there's a trail that leaves the end of that plane, and it goes from one horizon all the way to the other as the plane flies across, and it begins to filter out and cover more and more of the sky in kind of ripples. It widens out and fills the whole sky. I mean, how could anybody think that that was the case, and then to live and to be underneath that?
Now, let me stop her there for a moment. What volume of a substance would you need to go from horizon to horizon for just miles and miles and miles? But she's not mentioning the official explanation. She's not mentioning, like, oh, what is this? What is the spray? It's a mystery. No, it only occurs. Maybe she doesn't know this, or I would actually venture to say that chemtrail believers don't know this. What percentage of flights? What percentage of flights have contrails? And this is just observational data. Out of all the planes that you see flying, what percentage of them have it? Well, according to this, 18% of flights. They only appear above 20,000 feet. When it comes to persistent ones, there are many answers, but and again, 18%, only 18% form this. And why is that? Is it 18% are using the button that says chemtrails, 18% are participating in the program? No, it's because only 18% of the time are there conditions conducive to the formation of the trails. This is all faulty causality. And now, when the chemtrail believer says they spray a line and then it spreads out across the sky and covers the whole sky, prove it. Take a video of it. This is one of these things, these mantras. They all say it. Oh, I was watching these streaks in the sky, and then by the end of the day, it was gray and the sun was blotted out. Like, you're lying. At this point, you're lying to yourself, and now you're trying to infect us with your lies. You need to go ahead and get evidence for these chemical warfare incidents which you're citing.
And know that whatever is in that is falling down upon you and upon your animals and upon the earth. And I mean, it's frightening to me.
It's frightening to me. She's scared. Like that commenter, they're scared. Poor Bambi. Did you say that poor little Bambi was huffing the... Bambi's got chemtrail lung. How frightening. Put a mask on Bambi.
And if people don't start really waking up and facing the fact that we've got people that are doing terrible things to us, and we had better wake up and
We must wake up and fight.
fight back now.
Fight back because we're being victimized. Wake up, wake up. This is where you go from being a sleeping blue pillar to a red-pilled truther living in a nightmare. Now you just have 50 more things to be afraid of. And she said, I am frightened. I bet she is frightened. She's afraid to go outside.
I mean, I'm the mom of 11 kids. I've got 35 grandkids. I mean, I've got a stake in this. I care about what is going to be left for my children. I care about it, and I'm extremely worried about what is going to be left to them.
These kind of linings.
She's extremely worried. Now, this is like 10 years old, 20 years old, this video. I hope her grandchildren have survived.
Off the charts about why is this happening? Why is this being allowed to be sprayed continually all over the United States?
Again, why is it being allowed to be sprayed is a loaded question. Sprayed is a very specific term being used here. It is not a, quote, spray. And what are they spraying? That loaded question is truther bait. And it has caught so many truthers, or so many people, so many inquisitive people, and it turned them into truthers.
All over the world. Who is paying for this? I mean, the incidence of Alzheimer's has just skyrocketed, which evidently has to do with an accumulation of aluminum in the brain cells. I mean, I think almost every family has been touched by a member as they...
Now she's blaming Alzheimer's on chemtrails, so it's not chemtrail lung you got to worry about. But is this even true? Again, is she telling the truth? Maybe she believes that she's reciting things she believes to be true, but does she know these things to be true? And if you really believed it, again, you'd be wearing a mask. You'd be locked down. Like, I would be way more worried about catching Alzheimer's from an airplane than from catching COVID from someone not wearing a mask. Like, I'm sorry, I can deal with a cold once in a while, but I don't want to lose my mind. So what can I wear to protect myself? You know, I can handle the flu. I don't think I can handle Alzheimer's. Kevin says chemtrails are like climate change before auto believers on both sides. Yeah, it's a parallel belief. And I have many examples of these. It's a parallel. All right, now, again, she's scared. I don't doubt that she's scared.
They get older having Alzheimer's. And it's a horrible disease. And to say that, well, this just came because people drank soda pop out of aluminum cans, you know, when my father passed away with all...
Anyway, really intense music. She's scared. We're all going to die, but this video is like 30 years old and nothing has happened. But my point being, again, as you all know, this is based on lies. This is lying through logical fallacies, conjecture, rumor, pretty much lying. This person posts these pictures of a normal sky, but angry-faced emojis. Weather modification, June 28th. They're calling it weather modification. And then someone else posts a link here to cloud seeding. Well, cloud seeding and condensation trails are two different phenomenon, but they conflate them. I'll be like, look, chemtrails don't exist. They'll say, oh, what about, are you denying skywriting? Are you denying crop dusting? Are you denying cloud seeding? No, I'm not denying these things. But you are conflating these things because you're promulgating a belief system that spreads through misconceptions and lies. All right, let's continue through our comments here. Again, we're killing this one. I know it. We're killing chemtrails. We're nailing the coffin shut soon. And we're not going to give this any more time once we've gone through with the debate. Because at that point, the bar will have been raised. And for someone to enter the conversation, they're going to have to bring a sufficient burden of evidence. And none of them can. None of them will. But we're going to bring an end to this. That way people can cite our work. We will have an IPR deep dive on it. And the IPR deep dive will be something like a documentary exposing this hoax that has been perpetrated on truthers. And it will be the gold standard. Where if anybody's pushing some kind of alt climate change, you can be like, oh, you're an alt climate change person? Well, here, you might want to watch this documentary, which offers a skeptical position on weather manipulation, which is something of a orthodox trutherism that is very pernicious, and it's being promulgated by grifters and fear pornographers. Ted Stryker says the background music adds tension to the video, and then some idiot pointing up at what we're watching. Oh yeah, you could put scary like Alfred Hitchcock music to an airplane crossing the sky and there's a condensation trail, and suddenly it looks like, oh my God, they're killing us. And that's a tactic in propaganda. We're looking at, propaganda is an art and science of persuading people through subconscious means. And one of the most effective propaganda techniques or marketing techniques is the testimonial, the eyewitness. So you're listening to her making emotional appeals. I got grandchildren, Bambi, animals. These are emotional appeals. And if there was a factual basis to it, you wouldn't need to manipulate emotions. You wouldn't need to engage in ad hominem. You wouldn't have to use dishonest argumentation and bad faith questions if it was true. And by making a big deal about this, we're drawing a firm line here where liars aren't going to be attracted to the parallel media. They're like, oh, I can't join you guys just because I want to lie about this. Yeah, believers are not welcome. You have one choice here, and you have one option here. If you want to join us, you're going to have to take your belief and investigate it, and then determine if it's true or not. If you can't determine it to be true, you're going to have to suspend judgment until you find something to substantiate it. But promulgating false beliefs is not an attribute that we're going to see among this new crop of media skeptics, which we are really the ground zero for. And the objective is to metastasize this. But it's ironic, but it's not shocking or even surprising to me at all that we're going to have a great deal of resistance from truthers who have been convinced of many things, and they're not going to be unconvinced. And this is one of these things that Mark Twain, I think, said, easier to fool a man than convince him he's been fooled. And I'm not finding that to be very difficult for myself. Like, I don't have any kind of major ego attachment to being right. It's like, yeah, prove me wrong, please. I used to believe in false flags. I used to think chemtrails were plausible. I used to believe in fill in the blank historical event as advertised. And no, I no longer. So it's okay to step outside of a false belief. But it's only really worth it if you take the time to understand how you arrived at that false belief. And much of what I believed in was the result of accepting an argument from authority. Oh, the screen's an authority. If it's made it this far, if it's being broadcast, it's a sure bet that it has been vetted. And that's really not a sure bet. It has been fact checked. If it was false, the news media wouldn't want to risk their credibility. They wouldn't report on it. That's what they want you to think. But that's and it may be how many of them operate, but at a certain point it's compartmentalized. Media has been compromised. It's not what we think it is. They're not reporting the facts as they happen, but they're proffering a prefabricated world view. And we're destroying that. Autohoaxology 101 is a planet killer. It is an asteroid, a planet killer, and it's heading towards the world stage. And I'm expecting an impact here sometime in the next 2 to 3 months, within the next 2 months. David Hoaxme says, I've heard DNA and genetics are fake too, but haven't looked into it. It's interesting that at the macro and the micro levels, we're kind of at the mercy of the priesthood to tell us what is. And the best they can do is give us cartoons to represent what is. Oh, here's a cartoon. This is the thing that's spreading around. Here's a cartoon. This is what's way over there. And you're like, well, okay, well, we can trust them, right? Well, no, you can't. Because some guy with the James Webb telescope, which costs $10 billion dollars, and it's a million miles away, so you're not going to get your money back. Some scientists at the James Webb telescope put a piece of salami on an image of space. And all the people who were looking at this image were convinced it was a star. They said, look at this beautiful star, 4.2 trillion light years away, brought to us by this $10 million telescope. This beautiful star is the most beautiful star we've ever seen. And there is this consensus, and all these people are talking about this newly discovered star. And the only people who didn't believe in it were flat earthers or NASA skeptics. And I'm like, I'm a NASA skeptic. I don't believe this is real. And they were like, shut up, flat earther. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You wouldn't understand with your flat mind. And I'm like, I would understand. It's fake like everything that they do. Well, it turns out that this French scientist's photo of a distant star of Proxima Centauri from the $10 billion telescope was in fact a piece of salami. And here's the culprit. This is the guy who did it. But for weeks, people's jaws were dropping. A lot of NASA nerds were getting this thing tattooed on their necks. They were enamored with it. This is the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. Totally worth $10 billion to see this star. But no, it's a piece of meat. So I'm just saying, if the brightest minds in the world can be fooled by something like this, then it means that the authority of the screen needs to be challenged. It's flimsy. It can be hijacked. They can put anything on the screen. They could say this is they could tell you anything and people just believe it. It's like they have direct access to your subconscious. Like, no, this isn't a piece of churroso in space. This is actually COVID-24. It's a new strain. Lock down, put on a mask, and people would. Being scientific means believing the scientists, even when they lie. Being scientific means you live in the end times. If you don't believe the science. Dinah Southhard says that the star makes me hungry for pepperoni. I just thought this was one of the best examples we have of what I call auto-belief. The Atlantic, why everyone fell for the viral space chorizo. Amazing space telescope image was actually a slice of meat. But this is auto-belief. So the approach of the skeptic is suspending judgment until you have more facts. So I look at it and I say, well, this is coming from a pathologically lying institution. And I don't trust liars, so I'm going to assume that this is a lie. That's my operating system. And I was right. Auto believers say everything on the screen is real until proven fake. Therefore, this is real. And it's beautiful, and I love it. And this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And then they find out it's fake. But if you told them it was fake, they would have called you a flat earther. But now that the consensus is in agreement it's fake because they were told it's fake, now it's fake. This is the desert of the designated real. And if he didn't say it was fake, they would be teaching this in college courses. Scientists would be genuflecting, be worshiping this thing. All right, let's move on. It's just gullibility. This is gullibility on full display. All right, 6/29/2024, Infinite Plane, Saturday. I sent out live stream notifications and archives last night. For the last 3 days, we had a bunch of live streams I hadn't uploaded, so I think I must have put up like 8 hours of content last night. But get on the newsletter, you'll get live stream notifications. We were in Discord earlier, got into a conversation about, and I think it's fascinating to talk about synchronicity, mind, and matter, and whether matter is a substrate of mind or if our sense of meaningfulness is just an illusion propped up by an ego, the human ego that cannot confront its own mortality, or maybe we do live in a living, intelligent universe. These are interesting conversations, and we go in Discord and we kind of sometimes go off the rails, but it's worth talking about because we're trying to arrive at something here, I think. We're trying to arrive at a clear view of things as they are, unfiltered, sans programming. Violet Pengon says maybe there are others that are salami that they didn't say was fake. Yeah, okay, that's actually a good point. Like, okay, you have the Trappists. That's an order of monks. No, it's the Trappist system of exoplanets. Large batch of Earth-sized planets found 40 light years away. And so they've shown us these 7 planets that we could all live at. They're all in the Goldilocks zone of their star. If we could just get a wormhole. And is there any reason to think that these aren't deli meats or slices of cheese? No. No. At a certain level, it's so compartmentalized. At the top of the NASA pyramid, they may be using food items to get these textures. Like this is a planet that's literally a Cheeto. This is Swiss cheese, slice of bologna. That's got to be, I don't know. This one here, I don't know. I'm getting this almost looks like a pecan, like kind of a walnutty, shelly type texture. But anyway, there's no reason to think that NASA isn't faking space with food. Why would we think that this was the first time? Maybe this is just the first time they got caught. Maybe it's an inside joke and has been this entire time. This entire time it's been a joke. They've been clowning us. Let's take the most expensive telescope of all time, a $10 billion product. You know what they could do with $10 billion? I don't know, solve poverty. And they built us a telescope, and then it's a joke. It's in our faces. Joined by Howard Boyd, says Shalom Timmy, good day to you, bro. Amen. Thank you. Thanks for joining on this Infinite Plane Saturday. Things are going to escalate here in the next few days, so we have a lot to look forward to. In about 3 days, Steve Bannon will be in jail. Goldfinch will have responded to his service papers, or not. In either case, it's doomed if he does and doomed if he doesn't. And next month, we're going to kick off the Autohoaxology 101 promotional events. Not quite a book tour, but it's the same idea, same concept. Armin Reese says, just arrived. Did you archive 619? I must have. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure we're caught up. I'm still uploading those latest podcasts, but I'm trying to get more and more time into this, so I'm arriving here early in the mornings. So you may catch us in Discord there. We've been having some interesting talks in Discord and Gilded seems like it's under attack. I can't prove it, but it looks like they may have found a way to mess with us. You know how Discord, they send in agents who are all hardcore Nazis in order to bring down your server. Gilded has this thing where a lot of times people's posts are being shadow banned, where other people cannot see what you're posting. And I don't know if it's targeted or not, but it occurred to me. They could be using deniable methods of messing up our conversations and breaking up our networks. They don't have to bring in live agents to spread bad memes. They could just engage in sabotage as a way of impeding our free speech. It's just a suspicion. It would be on brand, and they don't play fair. As most of you know here, Discord was contracting, or rather, FBI agents were hiring contractors to go onto Discord for the sole purpose of disrupting think tanks such as ours, discrediting them, infiltrating with bad ideas, and building a consensus against auto hoaxing. There are many who are anti auto hoaxers, and that's fine. If you're not a skeptic, that's fine, but we are. And you're not going to change us. You're not going to change this. You can't take a deprogrammed person and bring them back into the programming. And that's what you're doing. You're trying to convince people to join the mainstream church, the alt mainstream church. And we've already discredited it at its foundational levels. So alt media is not something that's going to be easy to sell on skeptics, because we're not alt media, we're not right-wing media, we're actually off-world stage. It's an important distinction. Anti-anti. I put out a post on this on Twitter and in the newsletter. It's called Anti-Anti. And the whole premise here is that the anti position is always controlled opposition. Always. There is no instance where the reactive anti knee-jerk position to the mainstream leads you to the truth. It never happened. Not once. It's always a controlled opposition talking point. That's why whenever there's a mass shooting, the left wing is like, oh, there goes gun culture. And the right wing says, nope, this was caused by SSRIs. And they've been saying this for decades. With selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors are causing people to pick up guns and go shoot up schools. That doesn't make any sense. But you see how it works. One side says gun culture killed those kids. The other side said it's antidepressants. Both sides agree a bunch of people died. Both sides agree in the atrocity. They differ on the interpretation, left and right. Another example of auto-hoaxology, Axiom 47, it's a bifurcated psyop. They both believe in the hoax, they both believe in the atrocity hoax, but they differ on the cause, and each side scapegoats the other side. Typical. Okay, looks like we've covered most of what I wanted to cover up today. Queen Diddaloo of QAnon. I don't know if you know about this, but the QAnon Queen of Canada, she's still a thing in Canada. But anyway, I found some posts of hers, and she's convinced that birds are fake. And this is strange, because it's like full circle. After Parkland, a lot of people were calling the shooting fake. So Parkland students got together, and they created a fake conspiracy called Birds Are Fake, in order to make people calling the news fake look ridiculous. So the birds are fake conspiracy theory was never real. It was always fake. It was always meant to clown people who call the news fake. So the Queen of Q, this Canadian queen, has come out saying that real pigeons have been replaced since 1995, and she shared this image of a pigeon with some electronic parts exposed in the back. And she shared this birds are fake thing without saying it's a fake conspiracy theory. Diddaloo Followers shares this photo, and he found, noting here that she claims, and this is the QAnon Queen, that birds are fake. Quote, I remember the Queen, this is Queen Ramona Diddaloo, saying something about birds 2 years ago being bots. I can't remember fully, but here's a picture of a bird with a circuit and chips that I've never seen before. So now you have this parody conspiracy theory being believed in by the conspiracy theorists. This is insane. Woodsbear says, can the people on YouTube see our comments here on DLive? Yeah, for the most part, all of the comments show up in the same place. They're all relayed. There are some people who are banned, like Mike D and Jake W, but these are people who have tried their best to sell us on their agendas, and they leave disappointed because they don't get any recruits. And that's because, of course, our agenda here is really just discernment and truth. I don't have any sort of interest in selling you on being scared of things that aren't scary. But I'm just not a real fearful person. I'm not afraid of my shadow, like so many of these truthers are. I'm not hoping for the world to end because I can't cope with reality. Okay, well, this has been great. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. Archives will go out in the emails. This is Lucifer Tim, 33rd degree. Thanks for the comments, as always, and I appreciate all the support. And we'll continue this probably in Gilded and Discord. Birds are fake are fake.